Dear ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to welcome you all to the second day of Sweden Innovation Days. I hope you had a rewarding and inspiring day yesterday. For the Swedish government, it's very important to tackle the societal challenges we face using innovative and effective solutions. Sweden is a prominent nation when it comes to technology, currently as well as historically. Investments in research and new knowledge lay the foundations for our welfare society and enable important scientific breakthroughs and innovations. Without continued investments in education and research, we put our competitiveness and our ability to innovate at stake. A clear orientation towards excellence is crucial for the Swedish research to be competitive in the future as the global competition is fierce. The education and research performed at Swedish higher education institutions are essential to this work. Higher education play an important role in the utilization of research-based knowledge and are thus a vital part of the innovation system. For us to maintain our leading position as a country of innovation, it's important to continue our support for the utilization of research results and our other knowledge acquired at our universities. Sweden also needs more engineers and more scientists, both to promote the green industrial transition and to promote the growth of the defense sector. The fast development within technology and the natural sciences requires enough individuals to be educated in these sectors. Therefore, it's important that students choose to study within programs in upper secondary school where they gain both knowledge and interest for the further studies in these areas. We need to ensure that more students complete their studies in engineering programs in higher education. And we need to encourage more women to apply to and graduate from these programs. Efforts are necessary so that Sweden will continue to be an innovative technology nation at the forefront. Therefore, we are working on a strategy to strengthen STEM throughout the whole education system, from preschool to PhD. There is also a need for increased mobility between the higher education sector and other parts of society. Joint posts, where academic work is combined with work in other sectors such as industry, healthcare or education, contribute towards increased quality of research and education and improved supply of skills in society. The current legislation is limited to certain categories of employees in the healthcare sector and to senior lecturer and professor posts. We propose removing this limitation so that other sectors and staff in early career posts also can be included. The purpose is to increase mobility between higher education and other sectors, not least early in the academic career. Let me conclude by noting the growing importance of dual-use research and applications, as the geopolitical situation, unfortunately, is getting more complex and dangerous. Through the membership in NATO, Sweden will get access to the innovation program Diana and set up an accelerator as well as some test centers in Sweden. This will spur innovation and provide new opportunities for our engineers and researchers. And finally, never stop believing in the power of innovation. A better tomorrow comes through the green transformation made possible by the hands and minds of engineers and researchers. I wish you fruitful discussions, rewarding networking and valuable insights during the remainder of this day. Let's innovate for resilience. Thank you.
Thank you for that message, Minister Persson. Welcome back, all of you who joined yesterday, and a warm welcome to you who are logging in to Sweden Innovation Days for the first time. I'm Beata Wickbom, and I'm your moderator live in the studio here in Stockholm. My role is to make sure that our dialogues and the sessions are as relevant and to the point as possible. I'm really curious about where you are participating from, what city or what location you are participating from. And we will start also to introduce our interactive tool. So if you could please go to menti.com. The tool is called Mentimeter, but you don't need to download anything. Menti.com, you have the address in the lower part of the screen, and you also have the code there, 3306-4433. And it'd be really fun to know where are you participating from, what city or what location, what region. And we'll get an image of that later. AI is on everybody's lips these days, and the challenges can be found at all levels of society. In our first session, you will learn more about what can be done on a national level. Let me introduce Fredrik Heinz. He's a professor at the Department of Computer Science at the University of Linköping, and he's also a member of the Swedish government's AI Commission. There you are. Hi, Fredrik.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Fine. Are you curious to know where our participants are from?
Of course.
Yes. Is it possible to have a slide to see? Okay, we have a lot of Swedes today, but we also have London, Tokyo, Luxembourg. From home, yes. Great way of participating. Bangalore, Johannesburg, Washington, D.C. It's basically a global event with over 2,000 participants. So you know who you're speaking to now. And we'll talk about the Swedish government, who has recently, or we will talk about the AI Commission that the Swedish government has recently formed with an aim of enabling competitive AI initiatives. Tell us more about the mission.
So, of course, we know that AI is having a very huge impact both in Sweden but also globally. And of course, it's really key that we as a nation take this seriously. So what we really want to do is provide recommendations. What should we do in order to be competitive in this global landscape, but also how can we improve Swedish healthcare and welfare?
In the aim of the Commission, it's also stated that the Commission should enable competitive AI initiative in an ethical and responsible way. How does that direct the work that you're doing?
So, I think we in Europe have taken a very good position that, yes, we want AI, but we don't want any AI. And we now see that recently the AI Act was passed, which then provides the kind of legal foundation for achieving this ethical and responsible AI. So I think from our point of view, the first step is, of course, how can we support public and private organizations to actually fulfill this legislation? Because, it is quite challenging both from a kind of individual organization point of view, but also from a member state perspective. And I think that is a very good foundation towards this.
For our global viewers, just briefly, what is the European AI Act?
So the AI Act is the European legislation that was recently passed where we take a risk-based approach, where basically when you put an AI system on the market, you have to determine what level of risk it has. And if it is, and then depending on the amount of risk, it also corresponds to how much regulation do you need to satisfy. In some sense, I think the most interesting category is what's called the high-risk category, where actually kind of most of the legislation is surrounded. There is also an unacceptable risk category where certain things are deemed so full of risk that we shouldn't even do it. But also that the expectation is that a large amount of the AI systems that will be used would actually be low-risk systems, which would then be relatively easy to introduce to the market.
Enabling competitive AI initiatives, the goal of the Swedish AI Commission, that's no small task. Tell us more about how you work.
So I would say that, first of all, we really need to collaborate and work together, because I mean AI really is having this broad impact on society. It's not just one sector, one aspect of an organization, but it really has this broad impact. So therefore, we really need to bring different stakeholders together so that we can both identify what are the challenges these are facing, but also how can we support them in overcoming this. Because of course, by working together and trying to really live up to the expectation, I think. I mean, that is what we want to do. And I also think that we see now with, for example, this regulation. I mean, one concrete example there, I think, is can we come up with general guidelines or support for, so not everyone needs to come up with how should we actually live up to this regulation, but rather, hey, we can do this together, come up with best practices, and then we share it, and then we really can accelerate the use of AI in a responsible way.
And also speed up the diffusion of solutions.
And actually, I think diffusion is really key here, because of course we want to also develop the technology, but I think in the end, the countries that get the most use of it is those that can manage to diffuse it both into the public and the private sector in the best way. And there, I think Sweden has a good position.
So, by way of working, you're bringing different players together, you're enabling and facilitating dialogues, looking at different parts of the value chain in different industries. Is that how you work?
Exactly. So I mean, we basically starting from like infrastructure, energy, and then working our ways up, trying to understand all the different, as I say, pieces of the value chain. And also, we are very much looking for input. So if people are interested in coming with input, we are open for that, and we gather it, and then we take that into consideration. And also that the members of the Commission represent industry, academia, private, public sector, and so on. So we also represent this broad group of stakeholders.
So you have long argued that Sweden needs a comprehensive AI strategy. Why is it so important for a country to have an AI strategy?
Because we need a vision, and we need a goal, and we need a direction. And I mean, in Sweden, we are quite a decentralized country with different authorities and so on. And I think the only way for them to make local decisions within their purview in such a way that we still are making progress on the national scale is to have this kind of clear roadmap, not only the clear kind of vision and goal, but also how do we expect to get there. And if we have that, it will really simplify for all the different stakeholders and organizations to make better, as I said, local decisions, but that we still get these synergies and we get the common pull in the same direction.
As you emphasized in the beginning, AI is not a technology. It's an enabler. It's an ingredient technology. It's a hyperscaling technology, and it's going to be integrated in so many different solutions. How can a commission help manage the risks?
So I would go back to, again, the AI Act and regulations. I mean, that provides the foundation. Then, of course, this is a very fast-moving field. So we will need to constantly monitor and see, are there, for example, market failures where the market does not take care of the certain particular risks in an appropriate manner. Then we can propose further legislation or other initiatives there. But I think in the first step, it will be to actually use the existing legislation and so on to manage these risks.
And you think that would be enough to begin with?
So I think that depends all about implementation. And if we implement it in a good manner, yes, I think it will provide a very good foundation. But I think it's also very important that we as individual users of the technology, we also have to have a responsible approach to this. We need to be aware that, yes, these systems often work very well, but they can sometimes make mistakes, and that we need to be aware of this. So I think it also has connections to kind of public awareness and making people more understand both what the technology can do, but also what the limitations are, so that we can, on an individual basis, also make better decisions and use the technology in a more responsible manner.
And I think also grow the acceptance of AI, not making it into like a dangerous black box, but really seeing how it can provide value and benefit down to like the individual person.
Definitely. And here I think one really important thing is that I don't see AI as replacing people. It's all about complementing and empowering people. Actually, I was part of this high-level expert group in the European Commission where we developed these ethical guidelines for trustworthy AI. And actually, the first ethical principle we had was that AI, we should protect the human autonomy, that these systems should really empower and complement people. And I really think that is the key. And that's also what we want to focus on.
That's a communication task as well for your commission, I see. So what's your view on the education system, both in Sweden and Europe? How do we ensure that it provides the right skills, the right capabilities for the future at all levels to work with, to implement, and to use AI?
First of all, I think education is really, really key here. And also, I think, in general, I would say that especially engineering education in Sweden is good. And I mean, today, most engineers learn about AI and machine learning as part of their engineering programs. But of course, we need to have higher volumes. But in some sense, I think that's relatively straightforward. We know how to educate them, and we know how to integrate this. I think the real challenge is how do we introduce relevant AI competence to all other education programs?
Because outside of computer science programs.
Yes, and outside engineering. Because I mean, it's very easy to think, oh, AI is a technology. It's only for those that develop the technology. No, that's not the case. It's actually something that impacts everyone.
Yeah, it's an enabler, part of our digital backbone.
Yes, and I would expect almost every profession to be at least partially influenced by this, which means that today, it doesn't matter if you're an economist or an HR expert or a doctor.
Agricultural expert.
So all these other education programs, which traditionally do not have any of this content, now also have to learn about AI. But it's not about learning the technical part, but rather how does this influence my profession? How does it influence my subject? How can I take advantage of this? So actually, this is one of the initiatives that we are working at Linköping University, and how can we actually introduce AI on every education program?
Multi-skilled competence is what we're always talking about these days, and now we're adding another layer or another enabler, which is AI. What's the interest among colleagues outside of the engineering departments that you meet?
So I would say it's definitely growing. So I have a lot of collaboration, actually, with education researchers. So actually I came from a meeting with them earlier today. So I mean, we have several projects on called AI literacy, which is really trying to figure out what is it that everyone needs to know about AI. So in some sense about literacy, just like we have to learn how to read, we also have to learn how do we responsibly and effectively use AI. So I think that's, and we see also that the interest from other areas is increasing, but it's also a different field. So of course there are thresholds that needs to be overcome, and it will take a bit of time, but we are definitely moving in the right direction there.
Often when we discuss the risks with AI, we also discuss how AI can be governed. What's your perspective here? Because it's not one technology.
No, and I mean, first of all, I mean, yes, AI can be governed. We are already seeing, I mean, we have mentioned this AI Act several times, but it's not only about that, it's also about, I think it's about how do we realize this? And in some sense, I think regulation on its own will not solve the problem, but we need to combine regulation with innovation. And in some sense, I think the best way of making sure that we get the systems that we want is to actually build them ourselves. So I really think, or I really hope that that's something we can push so that we not only become users of other people's technology, but we actually build it according to our values and according to how we want them to actually work.
So if we start developing and building those kind of systems and solutions, in what 3 domains do you think a small country like Sweden can become a world leader?
So I think first of all, we need the kind of basic competence in actually building the kind of large AI models, because that is the foundation. Then I think what we should do next is to focus on areas or sectors where we are already strong, where we have leading companies that can then take this technology and take their kind of companies and their sectors to the next level, so to speak. And I really think that is probably where we should look. We are, I mean, in the middle of discussing this. We haven't reached any kind of conclusions, but I think the key here is really to combine areas where we are strong with this new technology and thereby getting an advantage.
Yesterday, you launched new parts of the strategy. As an overall indicator of immediate progress, Sweden should aim to be ranked among the top 10 countries in the Global AI Index. Our current ranking is 17, and you want this to be done by 2025. What's the most important thing to do in order to reach that position?
So that was AI Sweden's AI strategy. It wasn't from the Commission. But what I really think is important here is that what you need to do is to make progress in several of these different indicators. And I mean, we are mentioning some of them. We are mentioning education. We are mentioning research. We are, of course, also talking about on the kind of government level. So I really think also, and we hope that through this AI Commission, we will see further initiatives from the government, because actually that's one of the parts of these indices where we are lower than we should be.
Cool. Thank you so much, Fredrik, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And let's hope that also AI can speed up the pace of innovation.
Overall, Sweden is considered to be the third best country in the world to live in, according to the new survey Best Countries by US News. Sweden is distinguished by areas such as a strong public sector, free healthcare, equality, and sustainability.
Mobile communication between people, objects, buildings, cities, etc. is the basis for digital transformation. And the next big shift is 6G. And what we're going to talk about now is what can 6G technology enable in terms of new opportunities. Let's meet the director of research area at Ericsson, Mikael Prytz. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Did I sort of misread your title or your area of responsibility?
It was close enough.
What is it that you're responsible for?
So it's the research area networks at Ericsson.
It's a huge area.
It's a huge area.
Yes. And we've become so used to frequent generation shifts in mobile technology. Most countries have 5G to some degree, and the next shift is 6G. Tell us more, what can we expect?
Well, I think it's an excellent observation, and in a short answer, we can expect a lot. And I'd like to maybe take a little bit of first look, because to me, mobile communication is really a foundational sort of technology. It's really been part of the transformation of people's lives and also societies. And it basically started some 40 plus years ago when we could do voice calls on mobile phones. And as you say, we have 5G now available in quite a number of countries. Very recently, we saw the massive rollout in India. So now we have connected another 1.5 billion people into this key infrastructure for digitalization. But 5G is also in a quite early stage, right? So I think we've gone beyond sort of providing mobile broadband to a lot of users and having high-speed video and apps to smartphones to really a platform for digitalization of industries and societies. But still, right, it's going to be a number of years of innovation on 5G, but we would like we need to think about 6G going ahead as well. Mm. And 6G to us is really sort of a system which bridges physical realities with different sort of digital representations of it in a really tightly way and doing it synchronized.
Slow down. It bridges physical objects, people, buildings with digital representations of objects, people.
Exactly.
So it's a mix of cyber and physical.
Exactly. And to grasp this a little bit, I think maybe we should take a look at, I brought a film here, so let's take a look at the film. And it has 3 separate things ongoing in it. We'll talk about it a little bit.
Can we roll the film?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So we saw 3 scenarios there. Tell us more about the user experience. What I as a user can expect and the value I can expect.
Right. So let's take a look at them, and I think let's take a look at the first one here.
Yeah, it was there. So just go back.
There. Right. So the first scenario, I think it was clear, right? You saw a super connected city. We saw people moving. You saw a vulnerable road user, a biker, nearing an intersection. And then you saw a bus nearing the intersection. And here, the bus is connected, like it is in many cities today. But also the bike and even the brakes on the bikes are connected. And then you saw an overlay, a little bit of a digital twin that was sort of understanding what was happening. It was simulating ahead. It could see that there's an imminent collision. And then it sent a signal directly to the bike, causing it to stop, right? Mm-hmm. That was what you saw. The value is clear. It's about safety for people now in this environment. But you can easily think about more values in the city when it comes to creating a more sort of sustainable and more efficient use of its.
How far away are we from the connected bike communicated with the approaching bus?
I think we're not that very far. It's about getting more of these devices out there. We need a lot of them, not a lot of sensors and actuators. And we need to be able to basically sense the environment and communicate at the same time and do this with very low latency at real time. Mm.
Will it be really expensive? Will the bike be really expensive in this future?
I hope not. I hope not. I think we're talking about sort of zero energy, very small sort of devices and actuators here.
Cool. And then we saw an example of a woman looking into a shop window and
exactly
buying getting a raincoat.
Here the value is different. Here it's about sort of personalization, getting a personalized experience. You saw rain clouds that were forming in the sky, and you saw that a person was starting to sort of feeling that, okay, I might need a raincoat for this, and started to look in a shop window. But instead, you also saw a reflection then forming on a screen where the person sort of, you read the face, you read the stance, you could see the reflection moving as the person was moving. You could saw the person trying out different colors.
So the shop window became sort of a mirror.
The shop window became a mirror. And I guess the value here is really about that you get more personalized sort of experiences and it simplifies life and it removes obstacles here. So
can 6G also enable some kind of production of that raincoat?
I guess it could, right? But the main focus here is really to keep that sort of interaction between what's happening directly in the physical world and what is happening in the digital world.
And the third example in the film was a woman in a restaurant. I didn't really understand what she was doing there. Tell us more.
Right. I think this is probably the most, forward-looking or advanced scenario. So this is about sort of people having a meal together, right? But they're actually not physically in the same place.
Oh, so the man is not, he's a hologram.
The man is a hologram. So you sit there and you, instead of sort of interacting directly. I mean, we've gotten used to sort of using various sort of digital and sort of real time. We can communicate real time over video, etc.,
Yeah.
and have audio. And sometimes you maybe have had a meal together with someone also.
Yeah, on
over a link.
FaceTime all
On
the
FaceTime,
time.
right? But this makes it much more authentic and real, and I guess it makes the experience to feel as if you were almost there, right? So you could see the holograms being created in your glasses. And then there's sort of this haptic technology.
And these small glasses, like the old Google glasses, not the big like
Right,
VR
exactly.
mask,
Yeah,
really.
Exactly. So the value is really sort of more authentic communication between people.
Bringing people together.
More immersive, exactly.
For a nerd like me, I'm really curious if you could explain a bit more what the cyber-physical continuum is and how we will actually approach it, and when should it be cyber and when should it be physical in terms of creating services and experiences.
So very, very good question. And this is a little bit of a complex term, but to me, the system we see here is this bridge between the physical reality and the digital reality. I guess what you see at the left and right here on this picture. And then it's about being able then to make these fully sort of synchronized and connected. But it's not only that. It's about also being able to have a memory of what's happening in the digital world, and then use that to learn, to get insights so that you better can control what's happening in the physical system at the moment. And it's also about being able to play ahead in time, to simulate possible outcomes, like we saw in that traffic intersection scenario.
It's very if you develop a service or product, it will be very different because you will be able to simulate, you will be able to think in so many different layers here.
Right.
What kind of new competencies will that require?
I mean, you obviously need to mix sort of competences here that you cannot really do this if you would use our traditional sort of our industry, our ecosystem. We really need to work together with a lot of other sort of partners and people and use a lot of people that can basically explore and sort of see, understand behaviors of people and needs. So.
Tell us more how you see 6G enabling innovation.
So I think it will be done in many different ways, right? So I think this simple sort of what we saw here of getting these really rich digital experiences with this very immersive, that itself will be an enormous sort of innovation potential. And we saw a few examples. We can do more. I mean, like tourism. You and me, right? After this, we could go out and explore Hyde Park.
We talked about this so much yesterday in the program about experiencing the future, not just looking at a computer-rendered picture of some city or some housing.
Right.
And so we can actually be in it and experience and develop it as we are in it.
I think another interesting opportunity is co-creation. You can be two persons in different places working on a thing together. I mean, if you're into creating quilts, you could maybe you sit in your end, I do one piece, another person sits in another end, but you see the full thing together.
Yeah. We see that a lot working with digital twins today. I can work with, say, maintenance on an engine together with somebody else. But you need these like different gloves and you need the mask. And this seems more straightforward in a way.
I think you would still need to have ways to sort of, connect your motions, what you do. But this facilitates doing it in a very sort of transparent way. So.
Let's talk a bit about the risks. For example, the risk of resilience, because we're becoming increasingly dependent on new technology. How do you see us managing the risks?
So this is, of course, an important question. I mean, I guess in the scenarios that we looked at, you have you're using a much more detailed understanding of the physical world. I mean, we're using individual information about enterprises, societies. So clearly we need to manage sort of, the privacy and security part here. I think it needs to be done from the beginning so that you build it in the conceptualization phase, like for the 6G network platform. It's one of the 4 sort of foundational pillars, but also during operation. And I think when it comes to resilience and things that could sort of happen to the network, we can exploit the fact that the a mobile network is a highly distributed sort of system. And you see it around you. You see base stations everywhere, and it will simply become more denser. That creates creates a challenge when building the network, but also an opportunity for resilience, right? So for example, if you have distributed MIMO, it's a radio processing tool. It allows you to combine signals from many places. If one of them disappears, it will still work. So, and if a radio link is brought down, you can connect to another base station. And if one part of the network gets offline, the other part can still continue, even as a standalone unit. So it's a complicated problem, but also opportunities for innovation.
We're talking a lot about impact innovation here, and we're talking about the cost of inaction and finding ways to move quickly together to work on the large challenges we have ahead. Finally, how do you see 6G enabling more collaboration?
I think we have really a unique opportunity to push forward of some of these, I guess, global challenges here. And I think a lot of it comes from the fact that we are able then to maintain this really accurate view of a global system. You can have massive amounts of sensors, you can have massive amount of actuators that are connected. And you could build things like if you put a lot of environment sensors together with satellite data and fuse that, you could create like a live Earth monitor. It could also be about utilizing a lot of autonomous and intelligent machines that work together to do complex tasks. It could be drones that would go out together in a search and rescue mission, right, in a disaster scenario. It could be like harvesters, intelligent harvesters that work together to figure out what is the best way to harvest different fields to optimize the yield, right? So plenty of opportunities. I think you only have to basically imagine them and then start to explore.
Start exploring them. And when will we see this technology?
So I think we should start exploring now. You can use a lot already in the 5G networks. And then 6G, will come in, say, 5-6 years' time. Then we can simply start to scale up.
So interesting. Thank you so much, Mikael Prytz, for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So what if we extend our perception of reality into so-called XR, extended reality? Our next speaker is an expert, an entrepreneur, focused on how XR technologies can shape behaviors, foster empathy, and contribute to a more sustainable and inclusive society. A warm welcome to Ylva Hansdotter.
Thank you.
How are you?
Very good. And you?
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So we're going to talk about how XR, extended reality, can drive change. But before you start doing that, can you just say XR, what is it? Just so we're on the same page here.
Yeah, let's start with some definitions. So extended reality is an umbrella term from augmented reality and a spectrum through mixed reality and virtual reality. And augmented reality is when we have a data layer on top of reality, and virtual reality is a fully digital environment.
Perhaps you've seen like a windshield with some data on in your car. That's AR?
Yes, or mixed reality, depending on how immersive it is. Yes, correct.
And VR, you usually wear the mask or the goggles.
Oh, you can do that for the other technologies as well. But, the terms are blending together, and most have probably noticed that Apple released their headset this year. And they abandoned the term extended reality altogether and talked about spatial computing. But regardless of the definition, there are a multitude of companies using extended reality today to optimize their business processes. And the technology is getting better and cheaper, and the use cases are super compelling.
I've seen use cases of training, of maintenance, and I know you're going to show us some more. But you also say something that's so crucial to us today and for our program. You say that also extended reality can foster resilience and drive change. What makes this technology so impactful? And powerful.
Yeah, it's actually because of how our brain interprets the technology. But I prepared some slides, so I'm going to dive into them and
Yes.
I'll explain more.
And you have the time at the lower part of the screen.
Perfect. Okay, so let's dive in. I'm going to intertwine research with industry use cases. I'm going to focus on virtual reality, so the fully digital environment, because the technology is more mature, but also because there are more proven business use cases. This is changing rapidly, but for now, also, there's been research in virtual reality for more than 3 decades that shows that virtual reality is probably one of the most psychologically powerful platforms that we have ever invented. So I'm going to talk about 4 of the strengths of VR and how they translate into business opportunities. And here I have a... So first, undisturbed. In virtual reality, you create this whole digital environment, which means that you are immersed into the experience. So all of your surroundings are shut out. You cannot see your phone or people walking by your screen. You're inside the experience, not outside looking in like we do through a monitor. EEG have shown that we can concentrate by up to 6 times better in virtual reality. And this is one of the reasons why there are so many extraordinary research outcomes from training. So virtual reality has been proven to let us learn better, faster, and with higher memory retention. This is also the reason why corporate training is one of the hottest areas today. There are several companies that have all their training or part of their training in virtual reality. Anything from how to operate a machine to how to handle difficult employee conversations. Walmart was one of the first to use virtual reality for training on a large scale. And today, they've trained over 1.5 million people in virtual reality. And they've seen consistent results with better learning outcomes, but they also reduced the time of training in some of their modules by 80%. So truly amazing. Secondly, real. Virtual reality feels real, even if we know cognitively that it's not. It creates a sense of presence, a feeling of actually being there. And neuroscience has seen that we even create memories as if we were actually there, which is excellent because we understand things better, we remember things better when they happen to us. It's not just something we observe, it's something that we're actually a part of. So I will assume that many of you have had this sense of presence, but for you who haven't, I want to show a short video clip from Richard Plank that illustrates this really well.
Oh my gosh.
No, it's too real.
My palms are sweaty. I don't want to.
Oh my god, oh my god.
I mean, this is amazing. People know that they're standing in a room, but the reaction is not rational. It is emotional and physical. And there are many opportunities that comes with this. Here. One example is the fact that virtual reality can trigger authentic emotions like stress or anxiety have been used, for example, for treatment of phobias. So if you're scared of spiders, for example. And it's been shown that virtual reality treatment of phobias is even more effective or equally effective as traditional therapy. But it's a little bit nicer maybe to face your fears in a simulation. It's also cheaper and more accessible for a lot of people. So studies have shown that you can reduce your phobia symptoms by up to 75% in a 6 weeks treatment in virtual reality. But maybe even more extraordinary is that virtual reality, the ability to immerse yourself in an experience, is actually equal to morphine when it comes to pain treatment. So in 2021, FDA approved the prescribed use of virtual reality to treat pain. And over 60,000 people had gone through VR treatment, and they, in average, reported a reduction of pain by 33%. And this is to compare with morphine, which have a 30% reduction, so equal. So what virtual reality does is it actually distracts our brain from experiencing pain. And I think this is amazing potential. So, but virtual reality, it can feel like reality, but it's safer. So you can train and learn from your mistakes in a better way, especially in occupations where it's dangerous. One of the first areas to use virtual reality was training of surgeons. And a study from Yale showed that VR-trained surgeons were 5 times less likely to make mistakes than traditionally trained surgeons. A similar study showed equal results, better learning outcomes, 6 times fewer mistakes, but also the surgeons performed their operations 29% faster. And the ability to train in a safe environment has been adopted by a lot of industries. For example, Epiroc. They use virtual reality to reduce the number of injuries, but also to keep a consistency in their training, the quality. They also reduce the environmental footprint, and they also want to keep their machines in production, of course. Lastly, unlimited. So yes, we're immersed, it feels safe and real, but it isn't real. We can bend time and space. So we can hold an atom in our hand to study it and learn more about it. We can have the whole solar system in our hands to understand the concepts. And this supports our understanding and our overview of complex concepts. We can also visualize things that are invisible or haven't happened yet. We can travel anywhere up to space or back in time, anything to support our understanding. And the unlimited nature of virtual reality has been used in several business cases in the industry. One is sales and marketing, where you can try before you buy. Whether it's an apartment that hasn't been built yet, you can scout around and really get a feel for it. You can configure a car that hasn't been bought. R&D teams across geographies can collaborate on 3D models in real time, reducing the cost, increasing the iteration speed, reducing the environmental footprint. The auto industry were some of the first to start using virtual reality. They've been using it for 2 decades almost. And SEAT reported that they reduced the number of prototypes they needed to launch a new car model by 50%, and the time to create a prototype by 30%. We also have the simulation and optimization of places or processes. So it can be a factory process optimization. We've also been working with the film industry. So in the lower bottom right in this image, you see a scene from a series adaptation of Ronja Rövardotter that will launch soon, where you can have a place and you can plan and optimize a scene. So it's fantastic. We also have the breaking down of geographical barriers means that we can have experts giving you advice anywhere at any time. So the possibilities are endless. This is my final slide. It summarizes, and it also goes in a bit to the things I want to talk a little bit more about. But I talked about the 4 strengths of virtual reality and how they affect businesses, how they accelerate business. But what is amazing is that these 4 strengths can actually change us as well. So they can change who we are and make us more engaged socially. So I talked about the immersion, which gives us a space for reflection and deep concentration, which means that we can strengthen our problem-solving ability, our ability to understand and reflect. We can also visualize scenarios that are complex, like climate change. We can see things that are invisible, like the CO2 emissions, or model what happens if the temperature rises of 2 degrees. I've talked about this some other times, but what's really powerful with virtual reality is maybe the perspective-taking part. So virtual reality, all this strength of virtual reality, allows you in a very efficient way to take the perspective of someone else, someone who's different from you. And it's been shown that it's more like we tend to empathize more with people that are familiar to us, so people we understand. And VR allows us to understand different. I mean, sometimes virtual reality has been referred to as an empathy machine. I wouldn't say that, but I would say it is an unparalleled technology to support understanding. And it's been shown that understanding is one of the strongest predictors of social action. And finally, self-transformation. Virtual reality can not only change, it doesn't only allow us to experience others and get a better perspective and understanding of others. It can actually change who we are. So this is really amazing. There's been a lot of studies showing that we start to associate ourselves with the characteristics of our digital avatar. So we can model behavior in virtual reality and come out as better people on the other side. If I go into virtual reality as a superhero, I come back as a kinder person. If I go into virtual reality as Albert Einstein, I perform better on problem solving. So IQ test, I do better on IQ test afterwards. I mean, I assume many of you will not believe me on this, but the research is really solid, and it's very similar to what athletes do. It is the positive visualization, but it's very, very powerful. So to conclude, virtual reality is probably one of the most psychologically powerful platforms we have invented. It allows us to accelerate our businesses, but also make us better humans.
Wow, Ylva. And I can actually verify that not all of the things that you're describing are true, but I've been exploring virtual worlds a lot because I wanted to have a first-hand experience. And to the audience, I'm telling you, please do try it, because it's very hard to just read about it. But before we finish off, can you also tell us why is it that extended reality can nurture skills like self-awareness, empathy, compassion? What is it with the brain and the spatial experience?
What I said, it is about us being in space where we're not constantly bombarded with information from other sources, which means there's a time for reflection, and it supports the understanding. And to me, I might be a little bit naive, but I think the fundament for everything is understanding. When we understand people or problems, we want to solve them, we want to help them. The technology allows us a space where we can reflect and understand, and that changes our likeliness to actually go out there and be more socially active.
Which is what we need. Thank you so much, Ylva Hansdotter, for joining us and for enlightening us. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be serving you a couple of future scenarios from around the globe. And to guide you is Joachim Skog from the Swedish innovation agency Vinnova. I leave the stage to you.
Thank you, Beata. Hi, guys. Some of you might have tuned in yesterday. We had a great session called Foresight Wednesday. This is our monthly event where we train our ability to think about plausible futures. For Sweden Innovation Days, we have a really special edition coming up for you, where we do this foresighting together with expats around the globe to hear their thoughts about what's happening out in the world. For those of you that missed the session yesterday, Foresight Wednesday, it's available on YouTube, so check it out if you missed it. We have 4 sessions today, where each guest gets 5 minutes each to tell us the signs of change they've seen around them from their perspective that tells them something about the future. First off, our first futurist, if I may say, is Lars Hammarström, Science and Innovation Counselor at the Swedish Embassy in Seoul, in South Korea. Welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Happy local time. You're pushing bedtime, right?
Way past my normal bedtime, but very happy to be here, Joachim. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Nice to see you. So, as I said, each guest, you get 5 minutes each, and then we'll have a little chat of what we've heard, your perspective on the future. So please, 5 minutes, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Joachim. So I work as a science and innovation counselor here at the embassy in Seoul in South Korea. And Korea, I think, is known to most of you in the audience as, you know, one of the most research-intensive countries in the world. It has historically very large investments in R&D, second only to Israel. It has among the highest level of tertiary education of any country in the world, and also an incredible range of companies across a wide range of sectors. I think we all recognize, you know, brands like Samsung and LG and POSCO and Kia and Hyundai, etc. But this journey and this transition that Korea has done from the end of the Korean War in 1953 up to today, this is nothing short of extraordinary. They've gone from a country in ruins with a GDP under $100 per capita over the past 70 years to becoming the 10th largest economy in the world. And this despite having no essentially natural resources. There's no oil, there's no coal, there's no rare minerals, no forests. This is a country really built on the sweat and hard work of the Korean population. But this remarkable journey, being immersed in this environment for a while now, you notice has not been without cost. Growth, economic growth, is really the mantra of public policy here. It's been, of course, very central to the country's prosperity historically, and because of this, social reform has been very difficult to drive through politically. So there are considerable sustainability issues in Korea still. There's climate policy, climate actions that need to be put in place. There are issues with gender equality, not a very widespread corruption, but it does still have signs of corruption in a relatively young economy, young democracy like Korea is. There's extensive poverty among the elderly population, and not least the birth rate, which you may have heard about. Korea has the lowest birth rate in the world. It's the most rapidly declining population in the world, and this has, of course, huge ramifications for not just the workforce, but tax revenue, welfare, sourcing military long-term, et cetera, et cetera. Now in Sweden, we have as you at Vinnova are well aware of this concept of competitiveness through sustainability, and there's an industrial perspective to that, of course, with the minimizing the climate effects of the technologies, et cetera, that we export. But we shouldn't also underestimate the innovation in societal perspective to foster really an environment which is conducive to innovation and to excellence. And this means quality of life, equality, equity, possibilities to collaborate, levels of transparency and opportunity in society. Now, as Korea, is growing as a country and is aiming kind of to be in this G7 kind of environment where there are some complex geopolitical issues to deal with, it needs to acutely deal with a lot of these issues that it has. It needs to pivot fundamentally from being a catch-up economy to being a world-leading economy. It needs to go from developing what may have historically been products and services and innovations that are maybe best in the world in terms of quality, but new to the world in terms of real transformative innovation. And of course, it cannot do that. I heard a quite prominent politician here recently say, how are we going to be the best in the world and the most innovative country in the world if we're only utilizing half of the brains in this country? So gender equality and inclusion of women into society and into industry and into innovation is a big part of this transformation. Now, interestingly, recently the government actually cut the R&D budget for 2024 by about 15%, which is the first time the R&D budget in Korea has been cut for the past 30 plus years or something. And there's a lot of speculation as to why this is. Certainly, the increased demands on military capability in this complex and unstable geopolitical society that we have today is a part of it. But I also like to think that it is opening up for a lot of social reform that needs to be happening here. Interestingly, in connection to this cut, there was also an increase of the internationalization budget in R&D by up to 10-fold, albeit from a very small level. So there's a lot of rhetoric around this, but it remains to see how it will actually affect Korea's positioning internationally. There's also signs of being much more engaged in terms of mission-based approaches and focuses on global challenges. And this, I think, is a huge opportunity for countries like Sweden, which is very capable in these societal transformations, to really utilize this opportunity of Korea's pivoting, not just in terms of its technological capacity, but also in the role that Sweden can do in helping Korea, create a more sustainable, long-term, steady state for its future. So, just like Sweden, Korea is a very export-dependent country, and innovation, here needs to be more than just technological advancement. I think Sweden has a unique opportunity here to help Korea to transform its society into something more than just the bilateral relation that we have today, based on a lot of technological innovation and collaboration in research. So that's kind of my thought on the future, that we are actually in this pivoting, of Korea today.
And you paint a complex picture, but still collaborating and using Swedish strengths like equality and social innovation. You see that South Korea can actually accelerate their way forward, becoming one of the most successful nations globally.
Yes,
I recently visited Singapore. I sense a similarity when it comes to balancing the relations with US and China. Can you shortly just describe South Korea's, when it comes to innovation politics, how do South Korea balance that out? Just 20 seconds.
It's complex. I mean, Korea has this, there's this saying, we rely on China for our prosperity and the US for our security. So it's really trapped in historical, relations with both of these countries, and is relatively small compared to them, so cannot maybe affect these big, gravitational fields of the current system. But just like Sweden is a middle power, can navigate around them and find like-minded partners with which to collaborate, and still have this balance between those two.
So many similarities, many opportunities for collaboration. If we just make past that threshold of or the friction in time zones, I think we should really collaborate more together with South Korea. Thank you very much, Lars. Happy to have you here on Sweden Innovation Day.
Thank you.
Today, we have the ability to control and manipulate individual quantum systems, such as single atoms and particles of light. We're actually in the middle of the second quantum revolution that could bring us super capable computers and ultra-sensitive measuring instruments. Let's explore the opportunities more with the director of the Swedish Quantum Life Science Center. Here is Ebba Carbonnier. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Beata, and thank you so much for having me here, and thank you to the Sweden Innovation team as well.
So why is it important for a country to develop an ecosystem around quantum computing?
At this stage, there is a race in quantum technology. And having these components of research, development, innovation, commercialization, and the startup, and this whole ecosystem is extremely important to progress within quantum technology. So a lack of any of these components doesn't make it complete. So therefore, we really need to grow and have a prosperous quantum technology ecosystem.
And in that ecosystem, are there both developers and researchers as well as users?
Yes, that's crucial to have the pull from the users. So, for example, within the health sector, we have the university hospitals and the life science as a pull. Definitely.
So you've prepared a presentation for us, so I'll give the floor to you to tell us more about the opportunities.
Thank you, Beata.
And you see your time there, it's 8:30.
Yes, thank you. So the ecosystem is extremely important, and to grow our ecosystem, we have also developed our Swedish quantum agenda. And I will tell you more then about our Swedish quantum technologies and what we are working with. So who are we? Both the Swedes and the Swedish quantum community, and what do we have, and what do we do? So who are we in Sweden? Well, we have our fantastic midsummer light, we have our forests, our clean water, our ice hotel, Nobel Prize, our game development, some of our fantastic innovations like the adjustable wrench, roller bearing, Spotify, Bluetooth, and our quantum technologies. So regarding the Global Innovation Index, which I'm sure has been discussed here at the Sweden Innovation Days, we're quite happy to be in the lead. Switzerland has been in the lead for a long time, and we are competing with the US on second, third place in 5-6 years in a row. And the interesting thing here is that when the US has selected 12 countries for quantum technology collaboration, it is actually almost the same countries that are the most innovative 12 countries. So the Swedish quantum community, who are we? We have got the user companies, and that is growing, which we're very happy with, the large companies. We have our supertanker, really our flagship, the Wallenberg Center for Quantum Technology, which was financed already from 2018 by Knut and Alice Wallenberg Foundation. And we're really, really happy to have this in Sweden, because otherwise we wouldn't have done so well. And thanks to this, we have startups and we have a great ecosystem. And also what I lead is the Swedish Quantum Life Science Center. So what do we have then in terms of the infrastructure and hardware? We've got we're very proud of our 25 qubits, superconducting qubits. We've got nanofabrication, and we've also got our quantum computing testbed, where companies can come in and test their algorithms and start developing and trying out. And then we've of course got the whole quantum sensing area with spectral quantum engineering and the whole communication area. So what do we do? So we've got the health, the energy, and the security. So within health, examples here are for protein folding and quantum computing. And this is really interesting area because we have to know more about the process, the dynamics of the protein folding. Because erroneous protein folding gives results such as Alzheimer, Parkinson. So we really have to know more to be able to predict and prevent erroneous protein folding, for example. And then on the sensing side, we have quantum spectroscopy, where we, for example, have higher resolution in the brain to see the tissue oxygenation in the brain when there is a stroke. And also having this simultaneously when removing the stroke in the brain, the blood clot, to then see if the tissue is oxygenated. And then we have optically pumped magnetometers for epilepsy and so forth. And on the energy side, there, it doesn't really matter if it's grid, if it's energy power grid optimization or airline logistics optimization. There is great potential with quantum computing in this area of optimization. And regarding the security area, here we actually, quite a few countries have to work quite hard on this, because it's already now the case that we have this, some countries are doing harvest now and decrypt later, because when we get powerful enough quantum computers, we will be able to crack codes. So therefore, we have to work, and there is, of course, for many years, work being done regarding quantum cryptography. And here we have to migrate to post-quantum cryptography. So this is an area which we shall work with instantly. And just to take one of the strengths again, that we have great quantum technology expertise, and we are doing well within the domain of health and life sciences. So it is a competitive edge with quantum life science, and therefore we have started Quantum Life Science Center in Sweden. And in the Nordics as well, we are very strong within quantum life science. So we have this Nordic Quantum Life Science Roundtable. So with that, that was just a very short overview of Swedish quantum technologies. And thank you very much from the Swedish quantum community.
Thank you, Ebba. And can I ask you, what kind of international collaboration is needed for a small country like Sweden to strengthen its capabilities within quantum computing and quantum technology?
Yes, thankfully, since we are doing well, and the evidence of this that we are doing well is, for example, that US has selected us among 12 countries, or 12 countries have been selected for collaboration in quantum technologies. So that is a very good start. But the thing needed is also that we work very concretely with projects to learn from each other with other centers and institutes. And for example, with Cleveland Clinic, we're working a collaboration regarding the protein folding. So very basic and concrete. It's not basic, it's extremely
It's from
complex.
researcher to research team.
Researcher to researcher, but also on the application lab. So for example, with the Netherlands, we're starting off on radiology, and Elekta is involved in that as well, to explore the potentials of quantum computing within the radiology.
And we talked about competence needs in a lot of our other panels, and the need for multi-competence in the future. Is quantum also like an ingredient, a technology in many other research fields?
Yes, in many ways, but it is also very specific and very complex and very difficult to understand really what can these qubits do, and how do we entangle them, and what is quantum squeezing. So these competencies are very sought after in the world. So that's why we really have to grow our ecosystem and take care of our ecosystem, because otherwise our competency will be recruited to other countries.
Clear message. Thank you so much, Ebba Carbonnier, for joining us today.
Thank you, Beata.
Investments in sustainable products and solutions are key to accelerating the green transition or the green transformation. And how does long-term growth and profitability correlate with sustainability? In this next session, we'll discuss how investors and scale-ups can push the agenda forward. Let me introduce our great panel. Meet Erika Sundell. She's the Senior Climate and Sustainability Manager at Polarium, providing the missing piece of the green energy puzzle, smart energy storage. And with us from Paris is Jules Benanou, the founder and executive director of Clean Tech for Europe, the initiative bridging the gap between the European clean tech community and policymakers. And from the investment side, we have Karin Henriksson, venture partner at Green Code Ventures, and they're a digital-first green transition venture capital firm. Isn't that a great panel? And in the studio here, welcome, Erika. How are you?
Good, thank you.
And can I also see our other panelists? Thank you. Welcome, Karin. Welcome, Jules.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
So I'll start with you, Erika. Polarium is a fast-growing company founded in Sweden with customers across the world, from Ghana to Svalbard, with over 500 employees. So you're sort of a scale-up. And you provide innovative energy solutions. Tell us more about how you have grown and what the interest has been among investors so far.
Yes, absolutely. So Polarium was founded in 2015 by our current CEO, Stefan Jansson, together with the impact investor Vargas. And Polarium was actually the first company that they founded, Vargas. Since then, they have also founded other impact companies such as Northvolt, H2 Green Steel, Era, and the latest one was Syre recently. And as you mentioned, we were growing really fast in the beginning, the company. We established some quite big companies in the telecom sector, so a few of the biggest telecom companies in the world, and we could see quite quick growth. So it was really...
You established partnerships, so they were your clients?
Yes, exactly. So everything was really happening fast and going very well. And in 2022, we had a record year, high revenues, and we received many awards, fast-growing companies, scale-up of the year, and so on. So yeah, it was really a great story there. But then sort of at the same time, there was, of course, as everyone knows, a lot of changes in the economy. We could see a slowdown in the economy, and that, of course, affected us as well, or maybe first our customers. So our
the purchasing power declined.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So we could see sales dropping quite fast. And as a small scale-up company, that's quite of a challenge to have those kind of margins to handle that quickly. So the last year has been a challenge, definitely, to reduce costs, to make sure that we can go back to profits again.
So just for our viewers, your investors, they provide you with the initial capital so you can start building and you're recruiting, and then you're dependent on the revenue from clients. And yeah. Where are you now?
Yeah, we've managed now the situation, so that's great, and we're back to profit again, so that's good, but we're definitely more cautious on costs, for example, and we have reduced number of employees and so on. So we have to think differently, I think.
And you can't move as fast.
Exactly. But regarding investors, I would say we can definitely see interest. I mean, I'm not working with investor relations myself, but I do meet with investors because they are also interested in, of course, understanding our sustainability ambitions and plans, and I think it definitely strengthens the case for them when they see what we have planned for.
And we need a lot of companies like you, so we're going to talk about how can the startup scene and the scale-up scene meet investors to push the green agenda forward. With us from Paris, we have Jules, and you meet a lot of companies like Polarium. So can you help us understand why is it hard for them to fund their growth? And in what way are the risks different in a clean tech company compared to a company in a more traditional, mature industry?
Thanks, Beata, and great to be with you all. Well, maybe to look at a kind of broader picture first, I would say that over the last decade, Europe really has become a hotspot of clean tech innovation. We've basically developed most of the technologies that we need, not just to decarbonize our industries, but also to become the industrial leaders of the next decade. And that's thanks to an extraordinary ecosystem of early stage investment and new policy. So from electrolyzers to batteries, from green steel to cement, European innovators are ready to scale and to start manufacturing. However, this scale-up phase is really the hardest, and we're hearing that from our colleague. We really struggle to industrialize validated technologies. That's our big challenge in Europe. And why is that? Well, it's really, really hard to do. right? You think of a small companies with a few tens of people needing to scale to hundreds of people, needing to learn how to build factories and plants. And most of all, this industrialization takes a lot of capital, and Europe really suffers from a significant investment gap in clean tech. So I'll pause here, but happy to get into a bit more detail later.
So your message is, Jules, that we do have innovations, we do have the startups, but it's the scaling to an industrial scale that is the challenge. Karin, can you tell us more about how you as an investor evaluate the risks and the returns with a startup working in the field of green transition?
Certainly, certainly. So when it comes to green transition at large, one major risk we perceive is the waning political commitment compared to just a few years ago. And this slowdown of green transition initiatives and investments that the industry, the transportation and energy sectors so badly need, that will slow down also their ambitions and possibilities to transform. So and regarding then the returns, here we actually anticipate financial outcomes on par or even exceeding those of other sectors, given the urgency still for disruptive green transition solutions now in this decade.
So you don't evaluate these companies in any other way than you would a traditional investment?
No, we are a so-called Article 9 fund, which means that our key metrics are sustainability metrics. So we do also, so that is part of our valuation criteria, the impact that the startups that we invest in do.
Jules, you founded Cleantech for Europe because you wanted to bridge the gap between European cleantech community and policymakers. Can you tell us more about how you hope to solve the challenges that scale-ups are facing?
Yeah, I think it all starts with awareness, right? I think we have to start understanding this scale-up challenge, and I think we have to explain it very clearly to our policymakers. I think our policymakers are ready to hear this message from this next generation of industry. I think they're ready to engage. They want to engage. They want this industry to succeed. But I think we need to clearly show, I guess, the opportunity and the challenges of this industrialization. And the way that we've done that at Cleantech for Europe is to gather a group of extraordinary companies who work with scale-ups like H2 Green Steel, like Verkor, like Sunfire, that are really revolutionizing their fields. And we're trying to remove very specific barriers to this scale-up journey in Europe, working on funding, working on regulation, working on access to market. And I think when you bring these success stories and you change the narrative to one of industrial leadership and prosperity for the continent, then you just need to remove these barriers for it to work.
So we reframe, so that we don't talk about startups and scale-ups. We talk about a new industrial system. That's part of your message.
Absolutely.
Karin, what's your view on how to increase the innovation level in more mature industries towards sustainable products and services?
Well, I have the pleasure to work with fantastic green transition startups day and night, I was going to say, but I do think that startups and scale-ups have an important role to play here, to bring the startup mindset of disruptivity, challenge status quo, and having this innovative mindset. And And therefore, we see that many large corporations in Sweden and elsewhere have their own startup labs. And I think going forward, we need more industry startup / VC and academia partnerships, and with clear metrics for what success is.
I meet a lot of startups in the green sector, and they sometimes complain that there is no door in, there is no entrance to the large corporations, to the traditional companies. What's your view on that?
They might be very right. They might be very right. But I do also think that, and I also think it's there is a cultural barrier. I mean, maybe they don't speak the same language. So for startups, I think it's important when they speak to corporates to understand their counterpart. How can they be of help to these large corporations? I think that the doors, at least in Sweden and the Nordics that I know the best, it's not impossible, not at all.
Erica, what's your view on that mindset in a scale-up versus a traditional company? Are they different?
Maybe, probably, but also, I mean, in our company, for example, we have people that have been working in the industry. So I think we try to mix different experiences to bridge that. But I think it's very interesting, that was what was mentioned now, that, and I definitely agree, that I think the big challenge we have ahead of us now in society is to take all of these great technologies that are there already. That's not the problem, I think. It's scaling them and making them become the new industry. We're sort of changing the whole system. And a good idea there with how can we collaborate between the industrial companies and the new companies and learn from each other, because definitely that's
so
needed.
Much needed. We know there's a fair amount of capital in the market that needs to be deployed. Gilles, how can we ensure that it has maximum impact on sustainability?
That's a great question. So we recently published a report that shows that if we want to achieve the EU's ambition to manufacture a significant share of strategic clean technologies by 2030, we're facing an investment gap in the hundreds of billions of euros. That is not money that is easy to come by, especially in a period with very tight public budgets, right? So we have a real issue of capital allocation to the right place, which is this challenge of industrialization. Now, the reality is in Europe, we park most of our money in pension funds, insurance companies that hold trillions of euros and that are here to invest in our future, right? But today, these institutional investors very rarely participate in the venture capital market, and even less in the clean tech industrialization market. So we really need to have a strategy, just like we do with the large industrials, to ask them to adopt these technologies faster. We also need to work with the large institutional investors to help them invest in this market much more and to deploy this really strong financial might towards the right challenge of industrialization. That may take a number of forms. It may look like de-risking mechanisms. It may look like first loss mechanisms. It may look like change in our prudential rules. But we really, really need private capital to be deployed at a much faster rate if we want to meet our manufacturing objectives.
And to you, Karin, we know there's a big amount of capital in the market looking to be invested. And how do we ensure that it has impact on sustainability? How do you ensure that your investments really do?
So I think that it's important to have a holistic view on what sustainability is, so that it doesn't only look green, but that we really invest in companies that have a real impact. And for that we need good transparent data that can be compared to other companies. So we need actually to be able to make the same, to have the data, to have the understanding when it comes to sustainability, which is the same as when we make decisions on economical data.
Revenue streams, etc.
Exactly. So and I mean, this is still early days. So I think this will happen. Now with the climate crisis, we need to get everything to happen so fast. So let's see where we end. But yeah. So that would be my view on this.
Let's finish with a round of advice on how do you think we best align the returns and the risk appetite to really drive the whole financial sector towards sustainability? Erika?
I think what was a little bit mentioned here, look at the system level, what's really needed, what's missing, and try to identify the companies that really fill that gap. I mean, there are lots of new companies coming up, so really try to focus on impact, positive and possibilities, but also the negative side, because all companies have a negative impact also. Look at that, how it's addressed, the costs of turning that around into sustainability also, and take that into account so that you manage those expectations from the beginning.
What is your key message, Jules, here on how to align returns and the risk appetite to really drive the whole financial sector towards sustainability?
I really like how you're phrasing this, the alignment of risk and return. Our advice would be this is exactly how you focus the public funding is towards the riskiest aspects, so that you can help de-risk private money instead of having huge subsidy packages, right? So can you think of de-risking first loss mechanisms? Can you better use public guarantees instead of public money, et cetera, et cetera? But I would also go to the broader point of what is the risk of your current traditional investments, and how do these risks evolve in the context of a climate crisis, and how do they compare with investing in greener industries today? I think that's a reckoning that very few asset managers are going through at the moment, but that's going to change a lot of things in the coming years.
Excellent final point. Look at traditional investment or existing investments and compare them to the possible investments in more green companies helping us move faster in the green transition. Thank you so much to our panel. Great input and really valuable. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have another future scenario presented by Joachim Skog from Vinnova. Please join me. I'll leave the stage to you.
Thank you, Beata. Yes, it's once again time to exercise our future thinking muscles. And this exercise is especially important in these days. The speed of change when it comes to tech, behaviors, ways of working, vastly outpaces our natural ability to adapt. So this is an ability that we need to constantly train our thought regarding alternative futures. Earlier today, we heard Lars Hammarström visiting us from South Korea, talking about South Korea's sustainable steady state, or the search for it. And now it's my turn. I'm happy that you, David Jonasson, policy analyst at OECD, is joining us to give us another glimpse of the future.
Good to be here.
Usually you're based in Paris, but you're visiting Stockholm for Eastern.
Happy to be here in the studio.
Happy to have you here. So you know the rules of this game. You get 5 minutes to share your thoughts, what kind of science or change you've seen around in the present that tells you something about the future. Are you ready?
Yes, but I probably will go over 5 minutes because I thought
I'll give you 5:30.
If I can get a little bit more. Okay, we'll see.
Sure. Okay, the stage is yours.
Thank you. So I'm here in this capacity of working at the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. where I work on how governments can take on big challenges, so challenges that go beyond one sector, one agency, and we call this mission-oriented approaches, right? And the time that I've been at the OECD has really been marked by basically crisis after crisis, right? We have the Ukraine crisis, the whole post-pandemic recovery, the cost of living crisis, energy crisis. So the time has really been marked. If you go on the OECD and look at all the reports coming out, the word resilience just comes out again and again. I don't think it's by chance that this is also the theme of the event today. And I think the kind of sobering fact is, at least I feel that if we look 10, 20, 30 years into the future, this is not going to stop, right? You just mentioned a lot of these technological challenges. You have economic challenges and demographic challenges. All these things coming up. So, and you know, there's a term for it. It's always nice when there's a term, right? Something that makes you feel okay. I can put a label on it, right? And we have the term polycrisis, which is everywhere today. It's a couple of years back. And what's interesting is I went back and looked, and when did this come back into our vocabulary? And it's actually about 2016. Jean-Claude Juncker, at the time the president of the European Commission, started talking about the polycrisis because you had the Brexit, trying to govern Europe through the Brexit debt crisis, through all these different challenges of Brexit and the refugee crisis and just all these challenges. But this was 8 years ago. So here I'm getting to your scenario. Sure. The scenario in case is one where maybe we've gone through these different stages of grief, if you want, right? Bargaining, denial, depression, to this state of acceptance. So that we accept the polycrisis, that we learn to stop worrying and learn to love the polycrisis. And so how do we do that? I think it comes back to this classic kind of Nietzsche saying that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Right? So every crisis that we're facing, every challenge that we're facing in this scenario is one that of course, it's never fun. We don't love them, really. But we see them also as an opportunity to get stronger. Thank you. To build our capacity to take on and adapt to these challenges one after another. And so how do we do that in practice? I mean, first of all, I think we have a lot of historic examples, some very recent one, right? The pandemic response in many countries, the speed of which they were able to take this new challenge and threat on really seemed to correlate heavily with their existing recent threats and challenges in the country. And if we think in Sweden, here in Sweden, you had after the 2008-2009 crisis in the early 2010s, Sweden, I don't know if you remember this, but it was the rock star of the economic recovery.
Sure.
Why?
You tell me.
Because we had a huge crisis of our own in the 1990s, right? In the early 1990s, we exercised. We went to the gym. It was not fun.
The polycrisis gym.
But we came out stronger with a financial system that was more able to take on this shock. And we actually grew out of this crisis, even though we're a small export-dependent country, as I'm sure many speakers have mentioned during this conference. I'm losing this thing again, in case someone is able to help them out. But until then, I'll keep going. And so I'm not the first person to kind of think of this idea by far. And a couple years ago, the kind of famed economist, somewhat controversial, Nassim Taleb, you probably read this, the anti-fragility, right? I'm talking about anti-fragility, this idea that you can have anti-fragile systems that are more than robust. Robustness is that you take a punch to the face and then you get back up again. But this is that you actually get stronger from it, right? That a system that takes shocks and stresses and uncertainty and actually gets stronger from it. So this goes beyond, and the opposite, of course, is the idea of fragile system. Fragile systems, I think, are a lot of what we have been working towards recently because they're systems that are really, it sounds bad, but they're really adapted to optimize, to be highly efficient in the current system, in the day as, business as usual sort of system. So you have lean manufacturing, and lean manufacturing, the second, it's highly efficient, very profitable, but the second something goes wrong with your supply chain, you don't have your parts and you can't deliver on the products that you need to deliver to people. So basically, to get to kind of this future, how do we actually do this? How do we build anti-fragile systems? I think, and how do we make sure that we kind of surf the wave of the poly crisis rather than just take this waves to the face. First of all, I think there's this in this future we have a sort of mind shift that we come to expect the unexpected. I think we practice, and I'm preaching to the choir here, but that we use foresight a bit like a daily habit and have that what if in organizations as more knowing that after this crisis comes another crisis. But mostly I think we need to start learning really from one challenge to another. So take one challenge, the lessons, and apply them to another one, from one sector to another. And I think, of course, the OECD as an organization is really designed to do this, as be a forum for learning across sectors. But it's also increasingly, I think, about learning from one sector to another. So I think that's basically the scenario here, is where we've had this mind shift. And I think it also is about taking on big challenges that aren't necessarily a crisis, because those also transfer. And of course, here I'm talking about missions, because it's part of my work.
You're allowed to.
But if you are able to take on big societal challenges today, it not only gives you what's called positive options, so the ability to actually make advantage of changes in the system, but it also helps you train that muscle. So we can see this kind of dual benefit as things progress. Yeah, that's the scenario.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
I think you're talking about hope, that we all should be more like filled with hope regarding the future. Not see the crisis as the end of the world, but rather like hope for the future.
It's a classic silver lining, right? That's a dark cloud.
Let's and like never waste a good crisis.
Yeah.
Exactly. I actually I recently visited the Long Now Foundation, which they don't talk about the humanity in or the future in 10 or 20 or 30 years. They talk about 10,000s of years. So they were founded not in 2014, but in 2014.
Right.
Just having the mindset that we're here to stay, and that's really like you said it yourself, having that mindset. Whose responsibility? I mean, how do we get there? How can we as a community, as a society, gain that mindset?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a really interesting example from the Long Now Foundation, just having this tool, they reframe things, and you change the numbers on a clock, and suddenly you think in a different way. I think we are seeing, I mean, cultural shifts happen. They kind of sneak up on you. You don't notice it, and suddenly you think about something very differently. And we're all part of that kind of conversation, fundamentally. But these aren't like simple things. It's just there's many actors involved. This has come out of how politics are happening, I think. I mean, fundamentally, we are, to some extent, you can't get around it. This is about politics. But also leadership from industry, from civil society, kind of across the board. But I think it will sneak up on us.
So never waste a good polycrisis.
Yeah.
You break stuff, but when they heal, they get stronger.
Exactly.
Thank you, David. Happy to have you here.
Good to be here.
Welcome back. We've talked a lot about the transformation of the energy system, about new technologies, urbanization, and AI. What about human beings, and how do we involve all groups in society, including children, in the global transition to a more sustainable society? Our next panel will discuss the role of civil society and citizen engagement in relation to system innovation. Our panelists are Jakob Hellman, Innovation Specialist, Director of the Growth Hub, Save the Children in Sweden.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And online, we have Isabelle Sjöwall, neurodesigner and researcher at the Institute for Behavioral Neuroscience at the University College of London, UCL. A warm welcome.
Thank you.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Perfect. Isabelle, you're a researcher of neurodesign. What excites you with your research?
Oh, it's so many things, but I would say the potential, because within the field of neuroscience, there's so many things. It's just beginning now, and there are so many benefits that we could implement to society. So I would say that's it.
Yeah. You head the Innovation Lab at the Save the Children in Sweden. What kind of challenges do you aim to solve there?
good question to start with. So yes, I had the innovation lab, and that's actually one of the first innovation labs in civil society in Sweden. So we're quite a pioneers. And just some background on Save the Children, we are the world's largest independent child rights organization. And you know about the challenges, if we look at the world, I mean, we're present in 120 countries. We have complex challenges that the children face today. So we have climate shocks, we have conflicts, we have the global cost of living crisis. And also here in Sweden, we have segregation, gang violence, etc. So we have a lot of challenges.
And a mental health crisis.
Mental health crisis, yeah. And I don't like to be the party pooper here, but there's work to do. And at the Innovation Lab, we work to explore and test and scale up new business model and ways of working. So for example, we look into, you know, we're 100 years old, so we kind of struggle to keep up with the pace, but we're looking at new business models like social impact bonds, impact investing, blended finance, things like that, but also new kind of partnerships. That could be, we've been working on models like collective impact and mission-oriented innovation that we heard just now, and also leverage new technologies like AI. And we're just getting started there.
What's your key learning so far in terms of ways of working?
I think you have to be sustainable. You have to be patient, but you know, there's a lot of power in the civil society. So we have great like on the ground insights, and we have strong like connections with the communities. And if we can work together and also together with like private sector and public sector, we can achieve so much more. So that's...
Isabel, how can civil society become a more equal part in system change from your perspective?
I would say it's about knowledge in some sense, to spread knowledge about neuroscience and also mental health and the things that are universally important. So I would say to try to implement that in civil society would be a very good thing.
And at this point, I have to give you an opportunity to describe more. What is neuroscience for those of us who don't know so much about it?
Well, I guess it's everything. It's regarding the brain, but neurodesign would be about how the brain reacts and responds to the built environment specifically, and how that impacts humans psychologically and physiologically.
Neurodesign, my fault. I said neuroscience, neurodesign, exactly. So it's about how to design experiences for people. Can you say that?
Yeah, I think in a sense you can say that, but I think it's also relating to, I mean, things like creativity, recovery, learning, productivity, and things like that. So I think it's a very it's a topic that it's quite wide, but you can apply it for many different areas in society, actually.
Let's talk about some of the applications or some of the areas that you were researching. I know you are researching urban areas and urban living environments. Tell us more.
Well, we see in the context of mental health, we see that there's a correlation or an increased risk for mental health conditions in urban environments. And now we see that more than 50% of the world population live in urban environments. And this is going to be about 70% in the coming years, which is concerning. And we believe that in these environments, since we are basically wired for life at the African savanna, there are too many stressors and too many stimuli in these environments over time. So we are researching how we can better balance and create a better ratio between risk and resilience factors in these environments to try to strengthen mental health, basically, among the population.
And just so we understand, who could benefit from your research? Is it urban planning and developers, or is it more architects or city planners? Tell us more.
That's a good question. I would say it's very broad and it's for everyone. It's very inclusive, but I guess in a sense we want to empower architects because they have a lot of influence how things are built and how things are designed. But also I think for for private individuals, everyone can benefit from implementing these principles in their lives in different scales. It could be in their homes, but then of course, if it's organizations or schools or hospitals or in offices, that is a bit of a larger scale. So I would say it's for everyone.
Mm. Jakob, from your perspective and from that of children, how can you benefit from this kind of research that Isabelle is just describing?
Yeah, I think it's very excited to listen to Isabelle, and the research has great potential. I'm thinking it's about place. Place matters, and we need more good places for more people. And I think the research has great potential to focus on those with the greatest needs in the society. So children with mental health issues and residential segregation, for example. So if we can focus on that and rethink how we build our schools and neighborhoods, and maybe like the green spots in the city, not just for some children, but for everyone, that has like huge potential. But we need to, yeah.
It's sort of the missing P. We know that people, purpose, and place matters a lot for our mental well-being, and this is helping us on the place part of that equation.
That's a good way to put it, Beata.
So how can you involve children, our future citizens, our youngest citizens, and those with less proximity to power in contributing to system innovation, would you say?
I mean, I think there are plenty of ways. There are a lot of good methods around, like participatory design and maker spaces and things like that, but it's basically about being humble and listen. And just to give you one example, that when you work on measuring social impact, and then we usually pick indicators from the adult perspective. But we tried and flipped this. So we worked together with young people and co-created a digital measurement tool. It's called My Responses. And what we could see is also that the results is valuable for the young people. They can work with them. But also, I would like to stress that you can have like child perspective. We tend to talk about the child lens. So actually we created something called the Child Lens Investment Framework. So that's helping businesses to invest more like social sustainable. And that's another way of including the children, not directly but indirectly.
When you talk about inclusive design, sometimes when you design for those with special needs, it's better for everyone. Is that the case here as well?
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
Isabelle, we want broad participation from all parts of society in our global transformation, but climate stress, anxiety over system change, the feeling that maybe your competence is insufficient, they're not really positive enablers. What happens to us as humans when we feel scared or left out?
Well, I think obviously it's very complex and it's multifaceted, but I would say that it's actually in terms of altruism, it makes us help each other less. So I think there are a lot of things we can do to also use the environment for positive behaviors and to feel connected. So I think there are a lot of things we can do in terms of that. And we know also that when we talk about green space, for example, and connectedness to nature, that could stimulate also altruistic behaviors in a positive sense.
So just to understand, stress causes behavior that's not altruistic. We become more egoistic.
Yes, I would say at least over time, if you have like chronic stress, if you have this acute stress, it doesn't have to be bad necessarily. We need that in our lives as well. But when it becomes chronic, then it doesn't serve us at all. So I would say that doesn't bring out the best in us.
So we really need to learn more about how to design living environments and urban environments that can also calm our nervous system down if we want collaboration from all groups in society. That's That's like an equation that we need to solve. I think it's so interesting. What do we know about the reactions of children, our next generation of change makers, of decision makers, of consumers, in relation to the climate threat and societal transformation? Do you have any data on that?
I mean, that's a really good way of putting it, the next generation of change makers. So, I mean, Isabel already pointed out, we've seen a lot of like awareness and concern about climate change, for example. We've been talking about climate anxiety that's been recognized increasingly. But also that the young...
that it is higher than the actual climate threat.
I couldn't say if we have data on that, but yeah, maybe that's true. But I think it's also important to stress that young people are also very solutions oriented. So we've seen the activism to put pressure on us, older generation, but also that they are more optimistic about innovation playing a role in addressing climate change, for example. So we need to be optimistic about that.
So we need to invite them earlier into our organizations, into our planning processes, into the dialogues.
Exactly. They demand that and that kind of involvement, and they rightly do so.
They are also humans, as I usually like to stress. So what do you think is most needed in order to include the human perspective in the transformation to a more sustainable society? What do we all need to take away? 2,000 people are watching.
No pressure on me. So empathy, I would say, one word. But if I can have some more words, I think it's about, you know, I said it before, engaging and listening to a broad range of stakeholders early in the process. We heard about ethical and responsible AI, for example. I mean, that's the typical example of doing this. So I'm hopeful.
And listening to people who are not like you.
Yes.
What about you, Isabel? What do you think is most needed in order to include a more human perspective?
Well, I agree with Jakob, and I would add to teach children about the brain and the body, and because I think also knowledge can help us with this. And we see also that children that knows more about the brain, they can also implement those things, and in terms of like stress, for example, they can learn to handle stress in a better way in their own lives. So I think we need to talk more about the brain and also mental health and how we can make it better.
Empathy and more understanding about the human brain. Thank you so much, panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's talk about innovation. According to the UN Global Innovations Index 2023, Sweden is the second most innovative country in the world. This is the 16th consecutive year that Sweden has been ranked in the top 3 in the world. And what is behind this success? The fact that there are 50 universities that are free to study at obviously contributes to a knowledge-intensive country. When it comes to per capita investment in research and development, Sweden ranks 3rd in the world. This has created good conditions for innovation and the ability to turn innovations into products and services. Other success factors have been cooperation across borders. Large companies, startups, academia, and the public sector create more value together than separately.
The Swedish Energy Agency, Formas and Vinnova stand behind the initiative of impact innovation. It's the next generation of Sweden's strategic innovation program. And it's an actor-driven, it's a long-term collection of forces aimed at contributing to global competitiveness through sustainable development. And let's hear about the first 5 programs that have received funding. I'd like to invite, from Vinnova, Jenny Elfsberg.
Hello.
Hey, you're part of the steering committee for Impact Innovation.
Yeah.
Tell us shortly about the program to our viewers.
All right. I'm going to address viewers for now and in the future. So dear future human beings on planet Earth. I'm gonna tell you about 2024, which is a pivotal point in history, when Sweden is launching our response to how we're gonna tackle the wicked problems of today and in the future. We have our first 5 impact innovation programs launched this year, and they are gonna help us to shift into a sustainable future for everyone in different ways. I'm so proud because this is a completely new way of collaborating within Sweden, as we have learned, building on insights from the strategic innovation programs that has been up and running for 10 years, but also from other international examples. And we are going to make the future sustainable together. And this is going to be completely different from before in collaboration. And I'm so proud to bring these guys on board. Over to you, Beata.
Thank you, Jenny. So what I'll do is I'll start by inviting 3 programs, and you'll hear more about their missions. So I'd like to invite SustainGov, Net Zero Industry, and Water for Vital Environments, WAVE. Come join me. Hi, Marielle.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. Tell us, what's the challenge that you want to solve?
Well, there are several challenges we want to solve, but really the aim of SustainGov is to reform the public sector to become the best version of itself so that it can really change the lives of our citizens. It can improve the health and well-being of all citizens independently where they live or their socioeconomic background. But also in the process, by doing this work in reforming it, making it more proactive and holistically working, we're hoping to also contribute to the sustainability transition.
Mm. And what do you aim? What's your mission? How have you phrased it?
Well, that's pretty much the mission. Mm-hmm. So we want to make a difference to the health and well-being of citizens, and also, of course, this is sustainability transition. And what is unique about SustainGov is that we say we can't do it without also changing the way we work with our common resource, which is the public sector. Mm. So it's, of course, we want to work with all actors in society, with the private sector and the not-for-profit sector, individual citizens. But we think that, you know, we've come to the end of the road when it comes to working as we've always done, with business as usual. We think that the challenges that we're facing are so complex and so intertwined that the sort of industrial way of working, where we're trying to produce as much volume as possible to the lowest cost, it sort of doesn't work anymore. Mm. And we need to focus on outcomes and not outputs. And that really is a challenge for everyone involved, of course. It's something new that we're trying to achieve.
Your mission involves so many different stakeholders. What's sort of bringing you together? What will be the glue?
Well, what I think is the glue is that, you know, change is coming from inside. So what is perhaps rather unique about this setup that we have is a consortia involving actors from the public sector who are very much frustrated today about the current way of governing the public sector, and think that, you know, we need to also take ownership of this transition and do something differently. So that makes me very hopeful that the change that we are able to achieve will be a sustainable one.
Mm. And it's an impact-focused mission. So how will you measure the impact?
Well, what's very important here is that different types of impacts that we're hoping to achieve. So of course, at the end of the day, we have to make a change to ordinary citizens and businesses and people out there. If we can't see change there, then we haven't really achieved the mission. But however, in the process, we want to also be able to measure how the public sector is changing the way they're working, how they're working together with other stakeholders to around common goals. So that's also a new way of thinking, I think. So there's lots of immediate, long-term outcomes, and some are direct, some are indirect.
Very, very exciting, and it'll be so fun to follow. It's a long-term perspective, so I'm sure we'll get numerous reports along the way. Thank you, Marielle. Mats Lundin, you represent Net Zero Industry.
Yep.
Is that a continuation of the old strategic program focusing on industry?
And I would say it's quite a big difference, because in that case we still worked in a linear way, so to speak, that we try to do it a little bit cheaper, a little bit better, a little bit faster, you know, a little bit of everything. But we wasn't so focused on the circularity things and the climate change and so on. When we started 10 years ago, these questions were not really there, I would say.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
10 years ago, sustainability was not part of the agenda.
Not really, I would say.
It was more competitiveness and looking at value chains from different angles.
Yeah.
So can you describe the challenge you want to solve?
I think the challenge is really to start to work together, because the insight that we can't do this alone by ourselves in different expert areas. We have to work together. We're not quite used to that, I would say. So this system approach is really the key thing, I would say, to work together.
What is it that you're not used to?
For example, if you work with the product design, the production paper are almost your enemies, I would say. But you're not used to do it together. You design a perfect product, then you create maybe some possibilities, maybe some problems for the production people. Now we have to solve it together. And we also have to find a solution that makes it truly circular. Each product should go back and become a new product and so on.
And if you're successful, how will you measure success? How will you measure impact?
I think I mentioned in a previous occasion that we're a little bit privileged, because we have the Swedish Association of Engineering Industries as a coordinator. And their members, almost all the companies in Sweden, manufacturing companies, they will not rest until we have this function within their product, so to speak. Yeah.
So it will be a completely circular perspective, and finding all the stakeholders that need to contribute and finding ways of working.
Yeah. And that's also an important task. You also have to include, for example, society. The legislation has to be there. You have to, how we handle waste. Wage in the future is not waste, it's a resource. Then you have to change the legislation and so on, for example.
And that's why you have such a broad perspective.
Yeah.
So exciting. I know this excites you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Hi, Magnus Arnell. Water for vital environments. Yes. Water is vital in all parts of society. We've sort of taken it for granted in many societies in the Northern Hemisphere. What does your group or your team want to accomplish?
Yeah, as you say, I mean, we have water glasses here. It's really a luxury, which is not only a fundamental for life, but for livable societies and for all development, really. But there are big challenges also in water-rich countries like Northern Europe, with both too much water, climate-related, too little water through droughts and other things, but also water quality. And we want to really change the management of water towards a more sustainable use and management of water and related activities in all parts of society and the infrastructure connected to it, yes.
And who do you need to engage in order to really address this large scope of a challenge that you have in front of you?
Yeah, I mean, we need to have a really broad actor group, actually, because all parts of society, as I mentioned, people and society, business and industry, and also for the benefit of nature and biodiversity, we need actors from all of those parts because these things are interconnected, they are complex, and we need to address not only technical innovation solutions, but also like governance issues, including agencies and departments. We need to include financial solutions where the financial sector needs to be involved, along with, of course, the municipal actors that own the water, public water sector, and industries, which are large water users in Sweden.
What excites you the most with having this role and working with this challenge?
I mean, I hope, or I see for myself that we really will be able to achieve this transformation by bringing together the actors that needs to work together to solve this, but also to be able to work on all of these different system perspectives in the same context. I hope that we can really deploy and achieve this transformation, yes.
It's going to be so interesting to follow, and I know you will also have a lot of global collaboration, so we'll hear more about this.
Yeah, I would like to emphasize that really, that water solutions have to be local, but the problems are truly global. And we need to bring in people from the international community and vendors to help us to solve this. But also, of course, look forward to share our solutions to a global market.
Thank you, Magnus.
Thank you.
Here are two more programs. Welcome, Lawrence Hui. You represent metals and minerals. Yes. And John Hultén, you represent Shift to Access. Let's start with you, Lawrence. What is it that, that you want to contribute with?
We're looking to establish a societal transition to fossil-free world. And we need metals and minerals to do this. And we have to produce them in a sustainable way. So that's the overall arching mission, is to do that.
And how much of this is an international collaboration, and how much is this focused on Sweden?
There certainly will be an strong international component to this, because it's a global issue, a global problem, challenge that we need to solve. And Sweden going alone doesn't make any sense. I mean, we have to go out, we have to have partnerships. There's things that we're very well in the forefront of, for example, fossil-free steel production, mining technology, and so forth. But there's other areas where we need innovation capacity, we need collaboration also, and we need to transfer knowledge to other places that are producing metals that we'll still be importing. I mean, there's many connections internationally.
Yeah, this
that
value
need to be
chain
done.
is global.
It's very complex.
When we talk about system change, which is what you want to achieve, what are some of the sort of focus or starting points or focus points when you start a long-term process like this?
That's an interesting question. Starting points, I think you need to develop a network and develop trust amongst all the partners involved in order to move forward in a good way together in a collaboration, a strong collaboration. I think the building up the trust is one of the key factors to get things going in a good way.
What else is important? Trust is one. What else?
You need support, I think, from, as we have with Impact Innovation, the act, especially in research and development communities, you need financing. You need to develop these things that haven't been developed before, which is very important.
So, if we stand here a year from now, what do you hope to be able to tell us?
Okay. I would like to be able to tell you that we've launched a large number of projects that are both of international character and also are on point with tackling these issues. That would be a good.
We're so much looking forward to that. Metal and minerals are really, really important part of the global transformation to a more sustainable society. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lawrence. John Hultén, Shift to Access. You can sort of hear in the name of the program what it is about, but tell us more.
Well, it's basically about merging the built environment and the mobility or transportation into a joint effort to change things. And these are two areas that are really affecting people's everyday life, not only in Sweden, but also all over the world, but it also affects the planet in several negative ways. So we really want to change, and I would like to cite the Swedish climate scientist Johan Rockström, who once said that we have moved from a small world on a big planet to a big world on a small planet. So we need to do things in a new way. We need to find out a new direction and start to take steps in that way. And that is what we want to achieve in this program.
Are you only focusing on cities or urban environments?
No. So our focus will be on places. And a place can be a neighborhood, it can be a street, it can be a village, it can be many different things. And we would like to find out ways to do things differently in many different types of geographical contexts. And show here in Sweden how you can do it, and also participate and collaborate with others around the world to learn from each other, to stimulate each other to do more.
Tell us more what's innovative in your approach.
Well, I think one innovative thing is that we really want to merge these two sectors who have been sort of developing a little bit on their own and contributing with a lot of benefits, but also a lot of problems. And by merging them, we believe we can initiate new perspectives, also take new positions. But we also want to go from a built environment, which is very much based on a linear production logic, towards more circular business models, and thereby change the resource use of the built environment. We want to initiate a new freedom reform with competitive alternatives to private car use, to find out different ways of how people can access what they need in their everyday life.
And what kind of international collaboration will you need in order to succeed with your mission?
I think we need a lot of international collaboration, both in academia, with researchers from around the world, with practitioners who do good things. We have to learn and see what kind of new technologies, business models, how can we work with people, involve them in these transitions. And I think we have so much to learn, because we have basically similar challenges and problems, but we also have to understand the context, the places. They are to some extent similar, but also unique. And we have to understand what are the unique parts and what are the parts that we can learn and generalize together.
Can I ask you also what I asked Lawrence? When you work with a system approach, what is it that you don't do? What is it that you're going to avoid doing, John?
I think what we will avoid is to do only one thing. So we will not only look at new technology, because I think we have done that so many times before. We have been enthusiastic about the new technology and then thinking about this will save us, this will save all our problems. And then the new technology will also be creating new problems. So a lot of the problems we have today is actually handling old technology. So I think that's why we need to think about many different aspects simultaneously. So thinking about system is about not sort of focusing on one part at a time, because that is what we have done so many times before.
So it's about keeping, for both of you, so many different perspectives in the focus at the same time. We heard earlier today about the technology of extended reality and of sort of visualizing in new ways to be able to work also with digital replicas of cities. Is that technologies that you will use in your process?
I think we will be open to use all technology that could benefit and could contribute. But I think what will be important for us is to actually create a movement, create a mobilization where also people are involved when developing these technologies, so that they are actually something that can be used by people and something that is not opposed by people. So I think that would be very important to us. But I love technology, and I think that would be a crucial part of solving the challenges of the future.
So storytelling and
Absolutely.
Citizen involvement, is that also important for you in the Metals and Minerals program?
Absolutely. Societal innovation, how communities are affected by mining and metals production, how to get a dialogue to establish some kind of common understanding and see what can be done better to improve not the society, both the regional even, but up to global levels.
And finally, yes, sorry.
I would just like to add, I think change is so much about ideas. And technology can also come with new ideas, how you can do things differently. But working with ideas and make people see what we could do in a different way, I think that's a very strong, way of working with change. So that would be important for us.
That's a great one. That's a great vision. Thank you so much, and congratulations to all the 5 programs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Overall, Sweden is considered to be the 3rd best country in the world to live in, according to the new survey Best Countries by US News. Sweden is distinguished by areas such as a strong public sector, free healthcare, equality, and sustainability.
Time for another future scenario with Joachim Skog from Swedish innovation agency Vinnova.
Yes.
This time you are taking us to Washington, D.C.
And San Francisco.
And San Francisco.
Yes. And I couldn't have asked for a better segue, listening to the guys before here talking about the importance of storytelling, the importance to not only talk about tech, but the consequences of tech. That is exactly what we like to talk about and understand more of.
Take us to DC and San Francisco.
I will, and we're happy to, several times today during Sweden Innovation Days, as well as yesterday, revisit the topic regarding futures thinking and strategic foresight. And this is an ability that we need to constantly train in this day and age, given the pace of change we're living in. So, as Beata mentioned, to find our final 2 personal trainers when it comes to foresight and scenarios, we're hopping over the pond to Washington, D.C., where we have Maria Brogren, Head of Office of Science and Innovation at the Embassy of Sweden, as well as Eva Nahari on the West Coast, Principal Investor at DNX Venture, which has a long history of accelerating innovation with Japanese industry corporates through collaboration with US startups. Welcome to Sweden Innovation Days. I always loved the term bi-coastal. And finally, I have an occasion where I can use the term having bi-coastal participants. Welcome to Sweden Innovation Days.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joachim.
So, you know the rules of this game already. You each get 5 minutes each to present your signals of change that you have seen around you, and that adds up to your vision of a plausible, possible future. And I'm not going to spend more time talking to you guys. Listening to you, Maria Brogren, you're first on stage. Welcome.
Thank you, and hi everyone. As Joachim said, I'm Maria Brogren, and I head the Office of Science and Innovation in Washington, D.C. And the mission of our office is to increase strategic collaboration between Sweden and the United States on science, innovation, and higher education. And a significant part of my job is to spread the word in the US about Sweden as an innovative knowledge nation, that we are the home to the Nobel Prize, and that Stockholm is second only to Silicon Valley when it comes to number of unicorns per capita. However, today I would like to take the opportunity to highlight an important strength of the American innovation system, namely its unrivaled ability to use moonshot initiatives as drivers for innovation, as well as enablers for international cooperation. The US has a 60-year-long tradition of using moonshots to mobilize resources for innovation aimed at ambitious, specific, and time-bound goals. The original Moonshot program was the United States' effort to land a man on the moon and safely returning him to the Earth before the end of the 1960s. President Kennedy stressed how important this endeavor was for the United States and the need for the nation to pool its resources to accomplish the goal. In Kennedy's famous speech at Rice University in September 1962, where he said that goals shouldn't be easy but hard, he also emphasized the ambition to use the space program to strengthen America's innovation capabilities. And in July 1969, the moon landing confirmed that the ambition to direct the nation's collective effort towards a mission, this common mission, had been successful in several ways. New technologies have been developed, new companies had been formed, and a new generation of engineers and scientists had been inspired. So now I'd like to give you 3 quick examples of current moonshot initiatives in the United States as an inspiration. I'll talk about the Artemis program, the Hydrogen Earthshot, and the Cancer Moonshot. The Artemis program aims at landing the first woman and the first person of color on the moon and safely returning them to Earth, to build a space station in orbit around the moon, to make settlement on the moon possible, and eventually achieve the goal of traveling to Mars. It is also a stated goal to collaborate with industry to develop necessary new capabilities. The Artemis program has already led to new innovations and new companies, for example, in the area of space rockets. In addition, US agencies are strategically using the space program to increase the interest in STEM among students, which we heard earlier today that this is really important also for Sweden, to contribute to a future-ready workforce. My second example is the Hydrogen Earthshot under the US Department of Energy. It has the objective to reduce the cost of carbon-neutral hydrogen to $1 per 1 kilogram in 1 decade, 111. Related goals are job creation and regional development. The Hydrogen Earthshot has already led to formation of several regional hydrogen hubs, which are private-public consortia aimed at developing new solutions for the production, distribution, storage, and use of hydrogen. The Cancer Moonshot is my third example. It was initiated under the Obama administration and led by then Vice President Biden. When Biden was inaugurated as president, the initiative was revived or revitalized with the goal of ending cancer as we know it. This is defined as halving the death rate of cancer within 25 years, improving the lives of those affected by cancer, and also increasing equality in cancer care. Like the moonshots for hydrogen and space, the Cancer Moonshot seeks to mobilize all relevant stakeholders behind the initiative, and over 20 government agencies are included, and academia and the healthcare sector are strongly encouraged to be involved. These are 3 examples of how the United States moonshot initiatives serve as centers of gravity today, attracting both public and private resources to reach a specific goal. And the moonshot initiatives also facilitate international collaboration. When a country clearly articulates its objective, like the United States does in the cases that I mentioned, it can more easily identify which aspects of the mission that it can target with domestic research and innovation, and which parts that would benefit from international collaboration. And I see great opportunities for Swedish stakeholders to both contribute to and benefit from all mentioned moonshot initiatives. And I particularly want to highlight opportunities related to the Cancer Moonshot, because last week Sweden and the United States signed a cooperation agreement on cancer research and its implementation in cancer care, which will facilitate collaboration towards ending cancer as we know it. And there are similar opportunities related to the space and hydrogen moonshots, of course.
Beautiful, thank you very much. I love the concept of moonshots. I think we really should follow the lead of US. Just shortly, is there something that Sweden can, given the ambitions with collaboration with US on this, is there something specific that Sweden can bring to these kinds of collaboration? Or is there something that you see that Sweden needs to learn in order to really make good collaboration happen?
Of course, we have a lot of things that we can bring, but I think that what we have to learn in order for that to happen is to formulate what we are really good at. So what we bring to the table specifically. So I think that is something that we should be better at, to sort of prioritize and focus.
Thank you very much, Maria. Happy to hear your visions and your inspirations. Eva, going to the West Coast. Happy to see you. It's morning we've traveled from South Korea where it was late night, and now it's early morning in San Francisco. Please, your 5 minutes is up. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Joachim. And first of all, I want to thank everyone at Swedish Innovation Days for joining us. This is such an important and exciting program, and I'm very honored to be a little part of the contribution to it. So thank you. Being situated here in Silicon Valley for almost 20 years now, I've seen quite a few exciting technology revolutions or evolutions happen. The smartphone, the self-driving car, the big data and social media and all that, but never before, and I'm talking about generative AI, have I seen giant companies push innovation to market this fast. As one example, we all know ChatGPT. They reached 1 million users in 5 days. And it's just mind-blowing. They're almost at 200 million users today. And this is interesting because it's put a very different pressure on the entire ecosystem of startups, enterprises, research, and investors in the Valley. So I want to start my trend spotting with a little assessment where we are to understand where we need to go. So the fast pace pushed by these platform companies has first of all pulled the carpet from many startups who jumped on this technology early following the Google paper in 2017 on transformers. So it really put a very high pressure and push on these startups who jumped on it, and then the big companies came and pulled the carpet under them. They got, for lack of better terms, surprised, and many needed to struggle to figure out how to move forward. And this in turn has put the entire VC ecosystem a little bit in hesitation mode. If the giants are moving this fast to commoditize and to push innovation forward, what is really the room for startups to push this innovation forward? So I see a cold investment market. I see hesitation around generative AI startups in general, and it has pushed a commoditization phase years too early of a normal startup life cycle here in the Valley that usually takes 5 years. It's now just 2 years in-ish, and we're seeing a lot of early startup death. So let me catch my notes here. Yeah, and this in turn has put a halt on the VC investment pace, right? So what will that have the effect of? Well, the effect will be that many of these VC firms will struggle to report their numbers because it has to have a pace to get to the next fund. So I predict we will see not only a lot of startups struggle and die too early without even having gotten the chance, alongside many small or early on VC funds struggle as a result of this massive hype that is led by the platform giants. Okay, and what will happen then? Well, I hope it has the side effect of that VCs will refocus on real business values, real business impact startups instead of the hype. Maybe that's a positive spin on this very negative mass death that is happening right now. And with this assessment, I think I can start my trend spotting. I would like to ask the questions. So what can startups do? Where can the giants go, right? And the second question would be, where is AI actually heading next? So to address the first question, where can enterprises and big companies, big giant platform companies not go? Well, where that leaves room for the startup to go there and innovate and find an opportunity. My assessment is giant companies can't go to unique data because unique data lives inside industry-leading enterprises. And why wouldn't the enterprises give up their data? Well, of course they wouldn't. This is my hypothesis. Every enterprise should treat their data as gold. That's where the secret is. That's where they can train unique AI and come with new, interesting opportunity to the market. So they probably don't want to give up their own unique data for that industry leadership to one of the platform companies. That would kind of be giving away gold. But on the other hand, it would be a challenge for them to innovate fast enough and push innovation to market without crazy investments. So I also think this unique data lives inside enterprises, but the enterprises themselves perhaps will have a challenge to innovate fast enough to market. So the opportunity there lies in partnering with startups. Startups have a very nimble ability to pivot and try and experiment at lower cost than what it would be for an enterprise. And if enterprises open up their data to a few selected startups, it's a very economically interesting way to innovate faster and get to market together. And to address the second question, where AI is heading next, well, I can already see that the models are getting smaller. We're talking about smaller data, self-learning AI in very specific domains. I would say industry-specific domains. And that is already starting to happen, as well as a more efficiency, talk about efficient algorithms and optimizations. It costs too much to do these big, massive AI investments. So there will be room for optimization. And thirdly, we have to start talking about multimodality. You can only do so much with just text as input. If you have text, audio, visual, other types of sensors, imagine what you can do. Yeah. So these three directions is somewhere I'm spending time and looking for innovative startups forward as well.
You're sending a really strong message here, both to VCs looking not in the position that you are, but I hope they listen to, but certainly to corporates as well as startups that will benefit from this new brand world. Eva Nahari and also Maria Brogren, so happy that you can join us and looking forward to continuing this foresight and future thinking training together with you in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
In a survey, 8 out of 10 large Swedish companies stated that innovation ranks as a top 3 priority. This is in spite of global concerns, or perhaps because of them. The need for new solutions that are economically, socially, and environmentally sustainable is greater than ever. So high rankings on global indices, as we have just boasted, come with a responsibility, and that responsibility is to drive change. The key will be doing it together with you and the rest of the world. Together, for a sustainable world.
Welcome back to the studio in Stockholm. And I'm here now with a panel to try and look forward to see how do we create even more impact. We call it Joint Future Impact, a call to action. And I'm here with the participants, Daria Isaksson, Director General of Vinnova, Sweden's innovation agency, and Helena Bjarnegård, who is a member of the Research Council at Formas, a Swedish government research council for sustainable development, and also Robert Andrén, the Director General of Swedish Energy Agency. And you have you stand jointly behind Sweden Innovation Days, and you are really interested in the impact that this event is trying to spark. So can I just ask you, because I know you've been watching, if I start with you, Helena, what's a takeaway for you?
Well, the major takeaway is, of course, that we have this large challenges that we all know of course. And when we see everything that's happening, when we hear all the speakers talk about their innovations and their collaboration and so forth, we all feel hope, because we really take on those challenges, and we are creative, we are proactive, and we go forward. So that's the major feeling that I have in my body right now, hope, I can say. Then, of course, I work with the city planning. I'm the state architect in Sweden, and I also see everything from the point of view of the built environment. But I can come back to that later.
Yeah. Do you share that emotion of hope, Daria?
Absolutely, and I'll just come back to what we were just hearing. So a few reflections coming back to with this previous speaker just before this was talking about the impact of AI on society right now, both the challenges then for startups, but absolutely focusing on the opportunities at hand right now, with the opportunities to fine-tune AI models really easily. If you have high-quality data, the kind of impact you can have. This just happens to be key strengths in Sweden. One, we have loads of really high quality data and a lot of trust between our actors. So collaborating with Swedish actors here, it can be a great opportunity. We're also the leader in innovation in Europe, but most importantly, especially looking at the numbers on impact startups. So just coming back to that note, of course that gives hope. There's so much opportunity, naturally also challenges. But then coming back to what you were saying, Helena, yes, I think coming back to what's been framing this event, we listened to Professor Horton speaking about the urgency of the climate crisis. We heard the Minister of Defense talking about the necessity and the urgency in terms of using innovation as a driver for security. And we heard the Minister of Energy, Business and Industry also talking about how this is actually how we also build resilient, healthy, prosperous and competitive societies. What they shared was two things, I think. One, sense of urgency. Like, this is all super important challenges. Two, the hope. The fact that if we look at the synergies between the innovations that can drive resilience, security, and transformation into Earth system boundaries, that's truly an opportunity for our generation to create enormous value. And then the key takeaways in being, what does it require? Collaboration. Thank you for being part of Sweden Innovation Days. This is what we want, new collaborations built on this. Experimentation, the willingness to take risks on each other. Sharing data, sharing risk. And then, of course, doing that, and I come back to what Lisa was talking also about from Stockholm Resilience Center, which digs into cities. The opportunities also for wider inclusion, engagement, participation in this work. So those are some highlights and themes that really stand out for me.
Yeah, and I've actually never been to an event where the Minister of Defense, Pål Jonson, yesterday said that I think we all need to move out of our comfort zones. And that was a real high for me, hearing that. Robert, what's a key takeaway from for you, and perhaps from your perspective of energy?
Well, yeah, it's so many takeaways, I would say. And besides feeling a hope, I'm electrified, I'm energized. So I think that I'm at the right
living the
agency
brand.
at the moment. I'm actually living my position. No, but seriously, a sense of urgency, that is a takeaway. And it's so important. The other thing is that there is so much happening. We will not have a transition by talking. We need to work to do it in a concrete way. So I think that what I feel is that we are actually seeing a lot of examples out there where we cross borders, not only national borders, but borders within society actually are starting to walk the talk instead of talk the walk. And I think that is, for me, the best takeaway. And then, of course, you have digitalization, the possibilities of artificial intelligence, digital twins, and what have you not, that might be tools that we can work with when we are walking. But we need to realize that, and I see a lot of examples out there. They are walking in various constellations. And
yeah, I think that was a theme in many of the sessions, that bring out something to demonstrate, something that we can start working on together, and just instead of sitting, or visualize the numbers, share your data, so we have something. Because that's Lisa Schultz from Stockholm Resilience Center. She also said that change happens when people come together. She's seen these citizen what are they called? Citizen collaboration meetups, where people who are invited randomly come together. They just start working. There is no hesitation.
May I just say that changes will always happen. The question is, how can we direct them into being smarter, more sustainable in all the aspects? And that is what we can do. We can be kind of lubricants for making things happen from a governmental perspective.
Those of of our viewers who didn't see you at the opening yesterday, can you readdress that? How can you, as governmental agencies, enable and also spark the whole system change?
Well, one of the things that we pointed out, and that comes back to what we were saying then, was that, well, I'll also come back to what one of the ministers said. So what's needed now is actually to dare to think big. So creating opportunities for various stakeholders to identify opportunities to make a big difference. We also heard just recently how you can use moonshots. We've heard examples of using a mission-oriented drive for that. But just think and articulate really ambitious goals that can only be solved together is a driver of innovation. Identifying in that the different things, and that's the challenge for all of us then, improving that ability to identify the things where you can have multiple outcomes. So innovations that, for instance, in cities is a great example where you can really have innovations that both drive health outcomes, resilience in climate, and competitiveness at the same time. So you will find these, and then what is needed to be able to find those solutions is this experimentation, willingness to fail, and then learn very quickly from each other, which again, I think as government agencies, we have multiple roles to play here. Create opportunities for many to formulate these, to find each other, create and hold a space for this experimentation. We can also help creating opportunities then in terms of international collaboration or bringing in the policy perspective from regulatory bodies, etc., and move in different ways. So absolutely, we have we can all play different roles, but I think the most important things are the key themes that come out here. Dare to think big, brave goals, unpack it, look at where you can make a big difference, identify that, and build the collaborations around it. And I'm really, really proud we saw some great examples of it, I think, during these days.
I'm thinking also about our youngest participant, Vilma Emanuelsson, building a technology for helping individuals with dyslexia, who said that when she was 7 years old, she walked into the living room and said to her parents, "I want to be the world's best hacker." And her parents said, "Great, how can we help you?" And I think, and she said, don't think big, don't make the problem too small, because aiming for that big problem and the complexity, increasing the complexity, was what brought her to where she is now, when she's working with deep tech.
Yeah. We as the government agencies, you also work together to support the cities, because they are the local agencies, so to speak. And we have heard so many people and innovation teams working with cities here today, even if they don't know it, because everything will wind up in a place somewhere close to you at some point, I think. We have heard about the food system, for example, and there we can see that government agencies can work together from all point of views to support the local communities. When you work with food, you work with the soils, you work with the transportation system, the whole system from stores to people's behavior.
To water.
To water, to everything. Electrification will wind up in a city at a person. A behavior point of view is also important there. And we heard Shift to Access talk about buildings and infrastructure, for example, and innovations about that, how they wind up in a place somewhere where people live. And of course, the climate neutral program that is part of the Horizon Europe, and also is very, very big in Sweden, about 100 climate neutral cities in Europe. And how we now have 23 climate neutral cities in this program in Sweden, and more to come. Maybe 70 in 2 years, we hope. So I think that we as government agencies, we can help the local communities, and we do that today. So we can see them here on the stage, Stockholm, Madrid, and so forth.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, but I think I agree with you. And looking at what the urbanization around the world, we will see mega cities. We will see, 60–70% of the world's population living in big cities. But we can't. I think it's important to talk about the whole society, because otherwise you create these rifts between the rural areas and the cities. So we need to say that this is a benefit for the whole of society in a way. And I think that one thing I think is very important is and let me quote Churchill here, which is my favorite person to quote. He said that success is not final, failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that matters. And that is what innovation and research is about. It's about good trying, finding new ways, and even if it's perfect, it will not be perfect forever. But it could be perfect there for a while, and we need to kind of keep on moving. And I think that is, the courage is for us to continue, even if we have bad learnings, bad examples.
With modern phrasing, we would also say the courage to scale. Because that's also what we need to do now.
Of course.
Daria?
And I think, and that also resonates with the last thing we heard. So startups and scale-ups have the courage. They think big, they move fast. It's a super important driver in this. And when it comes to taking risk, what really needs to happen, both from the public sector side and multinational side, is there to take risk on these new companies, being great first customers. And we also could talk more about the difference between how policy is needed to also drive this necessary innovation, but how policy insecurity in regulatory space hinders innovation. So that's something I hope we will talk more and keep each other accountable, because that's a very important topic. But right now, the sense of urgency and the vulnerability of very important startups and scale-ups and what it really takes to make the most of that innovation force. We are absolutely aware of how important that is and need to keep working on it.
Let's also end this wrap-up session by looking to 2025. I hope we'll meet here again for Sweden Innovation Days. What do we need to talk even more about in order to create more impact, even if we like doing more than talking? But what needs to be our focus from now and onwards, Robert?
Well, for me, I think it's the pooling of the diversity of competencies, to put them on the same platform, the same arena, and the same network, and start working together to overcome challenges that are general, in a way.
So maybe more examples
that is impact
of that.
innovation. For me, that's impact innovation.
Yeah.
So more focus on those kind of, both impact innovation and those 5 programs that was here, to see what have they learned during the first year, but also from other various instruments. So for me, competence in a pooled up situation, that's so important.
What else, Helena, would we need more of in order to create more impact?
Collaboration, of course, and that's a part of what you're saying.
Yeah.
And also there are new laws coming from the European Union on electricity, for example, and we need new innovations, and we need to invite the culture and creativity sector to make the innovations, so holistic that so they also will contribute to beautiful living environments to all of us.
Great. You will have a tiny final comment, but make it big.
Let's talk about
a tiny one, but make it big.
Yeah, okay, no, but one of the things is that we need to understand that the risk of inaction is vastly more expensive and more dangerous than all the action that we now do. So there's hope, there's opportunity. The Earth system boundaries, the groundbreaking research, translating that into governance, not only at the international and national policy level, but corporate governance, huge opportunity. Let's do it as fast as we possibly can. And then focusing, when we talk about policy as driver of innovation we need, not as a problem. How do we do that? And that will definitely require new ways of working.
So collaboration, system thinking, and have the cost of inaction in our mind all the time, and shift our minds and invite the startups. That's my very brief summary of the 3 of you. Thank you again for standing behind Sweden Innovation Days. Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I think it is time for me and my moderator colleague Joachim Skog to say thank you and goodbye. Joachim, why don't you join me? I need some help wrapping up.
Yeah.
What's your key takeaway?
Oh, I think listening to Ylva Hansdotter talking about how we can use XR, VR, AR, spatial computing in order to not only the tech, but rather change behaviors. And David Jonasson from OECD talked about not wasting a good polycrisis. Well, we need to train on crises perhaps in a virtual environment. So I think that was really interesting. But what about you? I mean, you're not only a brilliant moderator, but you have vast experience from digital transformation and digital innovation. What did you...
I think what we've been speaking about is sort of the green transition or the green transformation is such a catalyst for innovation and improvements in all areas of life, in learning, in the built environment, in mental health. We can address so many of our challenges and at the same time improve the life of the many people.
Yes.
And that speaks to me. And I think also that's why it's been great to have a few panels on how to be more inclusive. For example, not to forget the children.
Yes.
And I think, again, dare to think big or push yourself to think big. And even if it's a bit uncomfortable, and I'm a middle-aged person, I like to be right, but I'm going to go out there and be wrong more times than I'm right, because that's where the learning happens.
And I think there's hope. I think there's a well-known technique within Foresight, looking back to look forward. Someone said today that 10 years ago, no one talked about sustainability. Now it's everything about sustainability, and how quickly that transition was accomplished. So looking forward now, I mean, we have all the reasons in the world to be hopeful regarding the future, but it requires us to be brave, bold, and, you know, you can be wrong sometimes, but then you're right next time.
And start doing and taking risks and scaling, because we don't want to talk about sustainability, we want to do it.
Yes.
So dear participants, we're so happy that you joined. And if you missed any of the presentations, or you want to share them with someone or revisit, you can watch them on the web, on the broadcasting platform until April 5th, starting tomorrow. In this camera, sorry, dear participants, you can watch them until April 5th. And after mid-April, you can watch them on www.swedeninnovationdays.com. So there's all that content there for you. And our call to action is really that we need all of you to work together to innovate on resilience and sustainability. So do reach out to the participants of the Swedish Innovation Days. Connect with them on LinkedIn, or find or Google them and reach out, because we want to connect with you. So from all the organizers, thank you so much. And we really hope to see you again. We hope that this was valuable for you if you watched an individual session, or you were with us for 2 full days. Thank you so much. And hope to see you at Sweden Innovation Days 2025.
See you next year.
Bye.